Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse. This is episode 254. I am Peter, and unfortunately Matt, who has a very busy May apparently. I don't know if it's because he just got vaccinated, so now he's doing things because he's been cooped up for so long, and
because he can.
And he's such an adventurous Indiana Jones wannabe that he's got all this pent up energy to go do stuff. But he's missing this week. He'll be back next week. But Connor is here this week.
Yes, I am. Sorry.
If that's disappointing to you, I understand.
I probably won't be here next week though. Me and Matt are like alternating at the minute. It seems.
That seems to be the format right now.
Pete's loving this because it means he's avoiding all of the hockey talk.
It's great. Yeah, there's no hockey to bounce off from each other.
It was a great game last night. 2-0 down to win 5-2. Love it.
Yeah, sure, yes. So this is a DC Comics podcast. We talk about DC Comics. We get together and we discuss the books we've read this week, as well as some news and whatever else. But coming up on today's show, we have Wonder Girl issue 1, so that's a big new issue 1 for the week. We also have Justice League 61, The Flash 770, Nightwing issue 80, Catwoman 31, and we have a host of Patreon books this week. Now, I would have done one last week, but there was a 100-page celebration issue plus Urban Legends was out, so that did not happen. As I explained that last week, because I would have done Joker issue 2 last week, because issue 3 came out last week, and that's one of my Patreon books. I thought, but seeing all the extra pages last week, it made more sense to put it this week. But I'll be talking about that. Carl will be talking about Harley Quinn issue 2, also a Patreon book, and then he's also got Noctera issue 3. So,
yeah. Knowing I won't be here next week, I thought it was only fair to the patrons that I do them both now.
Yes, that's all right. I could use a nap towards the end of the show anyway, so I'll do that during Noctera. So yes, that's what's coming up on the show. So I look forward. Now, we are recording this. Has been the tradition this month, bizarrely, where for years we recorded on a Saturday. We never wavered from that Saturday recording time, almost to the minute. And I won't say since the start of the show, because I actually think there was a period in the first few months of the show where we actually recorded on Fridays as a normal thing. I think we switched to Saturdays after maybe like 4 or 5 months. But we have been on Saturdays for years at this point.
Literally hundreds of episodes.
Yes. So it's weird that I don't think I've recorded a single Saturday on the Comics podcast this month, which is really bizarre. But the reason why I'm even explaining this again right now is because if we were recording this tomorrow, like normal, there is a chance that the solicits for August would be available. Now, up until last month, they were always available by this time on the Friday. However, last month they dropped in the middle of the night. Not even just by UK standards, they dropped in the middle of the night Pacific standards, which is really weird because it was like 7 a.m. UK time.
As far as the normal schedule goes, they're about 5.5 hours late right now as we start this recording compared to when we usually expected them, kind of pretty much to the minute. That said,
the reason that seemed to, I mean, it wasn't officially given, but with the internet doing some digging, it seemed to be that the person who was in charge of putting solicits out was no longer working at the company. And so that does actually sort of extend to the idea that whatever made it messy last month is why it'll still be messy this month, and presumably until they actually hire someone, or whoever's in charge of doing it now gets used to doing it and knows what they're doing.
Gets their shit together and does the damn job.
And maybe the new weird middle of the night time will just become the normal. But I feel like I don't feel like, maybe the day will change, whatever. I get why the day might change, but doing it at the weird time they did last month was very odd. But so, if solicits do drop, middle of the night, they'll be talked about next week with myself and Matt. We'll start off with everyone's favourite segment, the ComiXology Top 10 for the week.
Okay.
People love it. People love the section. I get.
No, I don't.
I do. I hear people on Twitter. I hear people in the emails saying to keep the section.
You have not got one email about this section.
I beg to differ. I
want to see proof.
So I'm going to look at here at the top 10 on ComiXology as of Friday night or Friday afternoon US time, if that's what you're going by. So number 1, would you care to hazard a guess what's number 1 right now in ComiXology?
Is it a DC or a Marvel book?
It is a DC book.
Okay, if it's a DC book, I'm I'm going to be really positive and say Wonder Girl.
It's not, but you're going to be pretty happy anyway. It's Nightwing.
That was going to be my other guess. It was one of the two.
Yeah, Nightwing issue 8 comes in at number 1. Number 2 is Way of X issue 2, some Marvel X-Men thing. Number 3 is Amazing Spider-Man issue 66. And number 4, we're back to DC with Justice League 61. Number 5 is Daredevil, number 30. Number 6 is Wolverine 12. Number 7 is The Flash 770. 8 is Star Wars Bounty Hunters, and it's cut off. I can't see what the issue number is, but
it's the Bounty Hunter War stuff.
Yeah, sure, that's the one. Number 9 is Wonder Girl issue 1, so still got in the top 10, not too bad.
Yeah, I thought maybe issue 1 it might have gotten a little bit of a bigger bump than that, but it's still not bad.
Number 10 is Heroes Reborn issue 3, so that's again a bit Marvel's. But yeah, there was like 4 DC books in the top 10, not too bad by any means. Took number 1 slot right now. I think it's, again, this changes, I think, literally every day. So this is just kind of, as of recording, as a way.
A brief snapshot.
Yeah. I just sort of glancing ahead at the rest of the batch. One of the digital books, Infinite Frontier, Secret Files, that's like number 12, the new issue from this week. And then looking further down, the next Batman, chapter 12 of that, which we'll be talking about in a couple of physical issues time.
I assume is the last issue.
I would suspect so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was only four issues of 3 physically, right?
Yeah. Catwoman is right after that, though. Where's that coming in at? That's coming in at number 18. That'll be...
Not high enough, frankly.
Yeah, it could be better. But
I don't think it's bad by Catwoman standards in terms of what that book traditionally sells. I don't think that's bad, but it's just such a damn good book. It deserves to be higher.
Not at all. And there's very big DC books from this week that I have not said yet. I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
I mean, there was Superman Red and Blue, issue 3.
Yeah.
Is the only other one I can even think of.
Yeah, but I would expect that to be a little
yeah.
further down the list, just because it's a, out of continuity.
Anthology, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why that would be a bit lower. Yeah, I was just worried there that maybe there was something that was buried, because I couldn't see any other DC books on like the page 2, and then I'm on page 3, and I'm like, where's a DC book? I don't see a DC. I guess it's just because I thought that was all of them. Yeah, because we get to last week's DC books start popping up on page 3. So
the only other thing that is even big at all that I can see was the Batman Fortnite issue 3.
I did not see that in my passing, but
no, and apparently Legends of the Dark Knight issue 1 came out.
Yeah, that's a reprint though. That's a collection of digital chapters. So
oh, okay.
So that's the. I mean, chapter whatever it's on digitally is on here somewhere, but it's not there as issue 1.
Okay, what is interesting about that as a print issue then is I know the first issue print wise is 3 chapters of the digital thing, but that is just one story. Or by the same team, so it's just like one shot issue basically.
Well, that's neat. Neat. Yeah. That comes in at about number 26, something like that. So
yeah, that's not too bad.
But that's chapter 7 digitally we're talking about there. So there you go. That's your ComiXology. Snapshot rankings for time of recording. So DC seems to do all their mainline books, of which there was about 5 this week, are all in the top 20. So
yeah,
can't be too mad.
Enough.
Can't be too mad at that. Now, we do have a couple of bits of news to talk about, and we have some Bat family news. Some Bat books are going to be crossing over, and something of an event. Although, to be honest, as I read this article, it really sounds like more just there's an arc coming up in Batman, which is the heavily teased stuff with Scarecrow and Simon Saint and the Magistrate formation and all that. And that's going to be issues 112 through 117. But what's interesting is that some of the tie-in crossover elements that are in the other books, which to be fair, all feel part of the same world right now, so it actually feels quite justified that they're being affected.
I think the biggest thing for me that makes it feel, I don't want to say event because I think that's still like overselling it, but more than just a random thing is it's launching a new book through this event.
I mean, even this week's Catwoman like tied in more to what the current going-ons of Gotham are right now. So it doesn't feel cheap for them to sort of incorporate them in some way. But what's interesting here is that the month before that, so August, which is kind of what we're teasing here because that's what the next solicits are going to be, is going to have two of the current books tying in to this. It's called Fear State, for the record. It's a horror-themed event, which makes sense given it's Scarecrow, and this will be running through October, obviously.
And feels like a natural place. As, we've been teasing the Scarecrow stuff already. This just feels like the culmination of where we're going. Yeah.
So Catwoman and Harley in August will have their issues will be tying into this, and presumably be some sort of a prologue to the main event, which is the main Bat book, starting the following month. But there's also 2 one-shots in August, and we have I Am Batman issue 0, which is by John Ridley, and is about Jace, and is, basically expected to be launching a new book about Jace.
So does it specify that it's a one-shot and not just a 0 issue to be followed by issue 1 the following month?
Hold on, I'm not at that section yet. I've went past that section. There's a lot of text in this, because they did solicit text for every single one of these issues they're talking about. So yeah, I Am Batman issue 0 by John Ridley, which is a 40-page book, which is probably where I took one shot from.
Yeah, if it's actual solicit text, it usually says one shot, if it is one.
Well, it's not solicit, it's not got all the info.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Goes with it. It's just the paragraph, but they all have covers, so it feels like solicit looking in the article.
Fair enough.
So yeah, so that seemingly, the fact that it's called issue 0, presumably that means that the Jace ongoing Bat book is going to be called I Am Batman, and that's where we're going with it. So that's kind of neat. But then there's a one shot at the end of the month as well, which is Batman Fear State Alpha issue 1, which presumably means that whenever this whole thing ends, there's going to be a one shot called Fear State Omega issue 1 or something to that effect. Which they've done before. Marvel have done it a bunch of times as well with the crossovers and events. That's the one that probably is the most like need to read, if just for the main Bat story, because obviously it's Tynion who's doing that one shot. As you
say, obviously, as if you'd told us that.
I think it's obvious. I think that's fair to say that's obvious.
Well, I didn't know that. I hadn't read this article yet.
I mean, it's a one shot about what's going on in Batman. Of course, Tynion's the most likely candidate to be writing it.
Sure, most likely, but still,
Oh my god, are you just going to nitpick every single piece of information I give you?
You didn't give me the information. That was the problem.
I just did. Me saying it's Tynion, obviously, is me giving you the information.
Fine. But either way, exciting enough.
Oh.
I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, I am so close to meeting your mic. Alright, so... Yes, and then the story takes place in 112 through 117 in Batman. Because that was the thing, as I was reading this article, it was telling me about Harley and Catwoman, and it was telling me about the one shot. I was like, okay, this is all kind of weird and whatever. And it specifically mentions that the one shot is not the conclusion to the event. The one shot is the conclusion to August's part of the event. And I was like, well, presumably, like the rest of it has to be in Batman itself, because that's what they've been building to in that book. And sure enough, yes, it does confirm at the bottom that issues 112 through 117 are indeed the story itself.
The only other interesting thing that we haven't really mentioned yet, or at least I think is interesting, is that it also mentions it's following on from the events of Infinite Frontier Zero. By the sounds of it, equally as much as just the general events of Batman recently. So that seems quite interesting to me. I was like, okay, what's going to go on in that issue, that's setting up that event that's then going to ripple not just into its own event, but into this Bat story as well.
Before I make fun of you, I'm just going to confirm something. Because I'm sure of something.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, Infinite Frontier Zero came out in March, you idiot.
Oh, is that one? Okay.
and it set up some of the stuff that Batman's already doing. So
that's that issue. All right, okay, fair enough.
I wanted to double check before I really made fun of you for it.
Look, I forget the names. I've just Infinite Frontier. I'm like, oh, we haven't had that event yet. I know it's coming, and it's solicited, and I know Final Order Cutoff is this week actually, because that's why it was on my mind.
Yes.
And I was like, what's going on in that event? But fair enough, Zero. That set up the A-Day stuff. I remember that now.
Yes. There was a moment there as you were talking, we're like, it sounds like he doesn't know what he's actually talking about here. And then you actually said, I don't know what's going to happen in that issue. And I'm like, wait a minute.
I just forgot which issue. I forgot that issue was called Infinite Frontier Zero. I remember all the events of that issue. I just forgot the name of it.
You prefaced that by saying it was the most interesting thing that you wanted to talk about.
I didn't say the most interesting. I said the only interesting thing that we have not yet talked about. Did not say most interesting thing.
The only interesting thing. Okay.
That we had not yet talked about.
There is a giant variant amalgamation that you can get. The 6 issues of Batman that are going to be part of the story all have variants that all form a big image.
One of those.
Yeah, but it's not in a row. It's it's like 2 rows of 3, so it's a big square image.
That's probably neater.
Yeah,
6 issues all across is long.
Yeah, so yeah, it's at the bottom of the article. You can go look at it if you want.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. It's quite nice.
That's all right. So that's good. The one upside is that when you get to read Harley Quinn issue 6, you get a reprieve from Rosmo, because Rosmo's not the artist on the main story. He's doing the cover still, the main cover, but
I can live with covers. Small mercies. Who is on that?
Where are we? Laura Braga is on art.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Laura Braga did the art that we were not critical on, but slightly disappointed by in Future State. In the main Bat, I think it was the main Bat book. The one that had someone else on the first issue. I think that we really enjoyed. Who I'm completely blanking on who that was.
It was Dick's Batman. I mean, it was fine. The art was actually really good. It was just because it was after the other artist that it felt a bit.
It was a step down, yeah. But I mean, that's solid art. I mean, compared to Rosmo, it's going to feel like a giant leap up, I'm sure.
Yeah. Blanco's still on Catwoman 34 though, which is that month. There's no change in the Catwoman artist, which is good.
Yeah.
So it's and just for the record, it's Travel Foreman who's doing art on the John Ridley I Am Batman issue.
Did the art on the Second Son, the Digital First series. So that basically is just a direct continuation, it seems like, in pretty much all respects.
Yeah, it feels very much like the Second Son as a prologue, and then this is kind of where the real story with them kind of kicks off. So, all neat stuff. A lot of bad stuff. Or it's not even that a lot of bad stuff's coming. I mean, there's a couple of, there's one new book and there's an extra one shot, I suppose, but it's more so much that everything that the Bat world is building to it's actually going to pay off in a big sort of story that's going to ripple through all the corners of it, which is how you should do a sort of event style thing that the other books tie into, because it feels like they're all part of it anyway.
It feels like there is some very good editorial work going on at DC right now.
I think that's true. I won't necessarily say across the board, but certainly in the bigger families right now, it feels like there's a good consistency between them.
I agree, which is why I didn't specify just in the Bat family. I just, in DC in general right now, I think the editorial departments are all doing a real good job.
Is it possible that Didio's exit and the others who went around that same time were actually for the best?
It's not impossible.
Yeah. I don't know. I said on Twitter today, I tweeted right after I read 2 books. I won't say what they are yet, but I just tweeted that I think DC's ongoing mainline books right now are in a better place than they were in the early days of Rebirth. And I loved those early days of Rebirth for a lot of reasons, but I think there's a level of quality and things going on right now that...
I think I'd probably agree with that. Like, I tweeted, expect some high scores from me this week. Because I read like 3 issues in a row that I gave, all very high scores to. And I'm like, this is turning out to be a very good week so far.
So, Justice League and 2 others, right? Got it. So the other
a third of Justice League.
The other news that I've got here is that have you missed those 80th anniversary 100-page super spectaculars? Because there's one coming at the end of August.
Bloody hell! I haven't even read last month's 100-pager yet, or last week's, whenever it was.
Last week's, yeah, but that wasn't an anniversary. That was
It was a special.
That was a special for a good cause. This was celebrating a character's birthday, essentially. So Aquaman is the one who's up next for the treatment. End of August, 100-page, $10 book. A whole host of creators: Dan Jurgens, Jeff Johns, Brandon Thomas, Chuck Brown, Stephanie Phillips, Michael Moretti, Margaret Bennett, Dan Waters, Jeff Parker, Becky Cloonan, and Francis Manapul. Interestingly, some of those names are obviously equally, if not more, associated with art, but that's not the artist list. The artist list includes Steve Epting, which is a big yay, Paul Pelletier, Valentine DeLandro, Henry Paraceta, Pop Man, Trungles. Who's Trungles? I feel like I'd recognize Trungles when I see that at a list.
To be fair, I do recognize most of these names, but Trungles is not one.
Yeah. Miguel Medoncha, Doc Schrader, and more to be announced. So
I would say, obviously, the writers list there heavily outweighs the artist list that we've been given so far. So it's possible that some of those writers are also in their own as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Manapul's doing his own art.
Manapul definitely. Cloonan could go either way, because obviously Cloonan's writing quite a bit at the minute, including Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Honestly, the most exciting thing out of that list for me is just seeing Jeff Parker's name there again, because I've not seen him in a DC book in a while. And
I'm down for more Dan Waters as well, personally.
And I really liked his stuff on Aquaman at the time. So
that was fun. We didn't get enough of it.
Yep. So I am pleased with that. So there you go. Aquaman 80th anniversary super spectacular. They still call it a super spectacular, or am I just saying that because all the last ones were? It is. It's still a super spectacular. All right.
It is. Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
Complete with all the decade variants as well.
That'll be funny. His hair's going to just grow each cover.
Yeah. I'm just looking at them like, Robson Roker for the 2010s. I'm like, that's probably a fair representation of 2010s Aquaman.
Yeah. Simonson for the 60s. That's an interesting one.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah.
That's neat. That's neat. So there you go. If anything, the only robbery there is no. What's his face? From 25 onwards, come on.
Sejic.
Sejic, yes. There's a lack of Sejic in those variant covers. I know Sejic's wanting to do less, work for hire, do more creator own stuff and whatnot, but a variant cover won't kill the bastard, will it? I don't think it would. I
don't know. Who knows? He did have some health issues, I think, that slowed him down. So maybe it would.
True. I mean, if that's the case, fair enough. But
and this is a really bad week to talk about artists working themselves to death. When that happened.
It did.
Yeah, the guy I can't remember the name for the life of me. Japanese manga created Berserk.
I don't
he
know.
Died in like his mid-50s this week.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but sure. She said that as if I know what it is.
Very long-running manga with anime adaptations, very popular, like one of the most famous ones. It's a big one.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that the poor guy worked himself to death. That's it's just unfortunate for many a reason. The first one being death, but other ones too. But yes, I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the work or indeed the news. So I have nothing to add.
Not really your scene.
No. But you blindsided me with you can't say that joke this week.
It's supposed to make you feel bad.
I don't feel bad.
Never mind then.
I didn't know. No one can blame me for shit in this conversation. People who know me well enough know that I'm not going to know what Berserk. There you go. Berserk is. So it's fine. I want to say Bizarro just for the synergy, but hey ho.
You knew it wasn't quite right.
No. So there you go. That's unless you have any news you would like to add.
I'm assuming you spoke about Alyssa Wong last time. Just, more on, I know you like sales figures. Tynan tweeting out, and it has been confirmed by Newsarama that the orders for Nice House on the Lake are currently over 100,000 copies for issue 1.
No, that's good.
I know we were talking a few weeks ago about his sales on Someone's Killing the Children and how, that must be outselling Batman. Batman apparently at the minute is selling 200k plus an issue at the minute, consistently. Again,
I'm just going to say, it's funny how within a year of all of our ways of seeing the numbers disappearing, that all of a sudden everything's selling so well.
I will say part of that is there are a lot of variants going on right now for like Batman and such.
It's also very good right now. I mean, that's also another factor.
That helps, yeah. And I will say, these are being as independently verified as someone like Newsarama can do. I have to take their word for it that they're verifying this officially, and they're not just making up bullshit because
that means comics are in a better place than they were the last time we had consistent sales figures, and it definitely means that Tynan's stock as a creator is through the roof, which is fine, good news, because I like his work. I
actually think it's very plausible that comics are in a better place right now, because I think everyone got stuck at home for a year, and I'm sure a lot of people started reading more stuff, including comics, and maybe some of them stuck with it. True.
I wonder how it's affected digital as well, because for a long time getting to a store or waiting for very long delayed deliveries and things like that, I wonder if that drove digital up a little bit and maybe got a few people used to
it. Could well have actually, yeah, just like
especially outside the US where deliveries became very infrequent and very
and even in markets like the UK where we're pretty consistent with comics on the US schedule, we had problems.
It was bad in the UK, but you have to imagine the UK is one that would probably fare better than a lot of other places, given how other places get things late in general anyway, never mind during the last year. So I'd be very curious to see that, but hey ho. That's interesting. I'm glad it's doing. I can only hope Tom Taylor and Ram V's numbers are going up, because they deserve the numbers to go up.
They do.
More on that. Well, more on one of them later. Well, I mean, you'll talk a little bit about Ram V, I suppose, but I mean,
you will as well.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm forgetting.
You bloody idiot.
I'm forgetting Catwoman's out this week as well. I was just
forgetting one. Do you know what? I can't even say like one of the best books this week, because I mean it's a very good week. But in times gone by, I might have said the best book this week. I might have put that bold statement out there, but I mean I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Well,
it's got stiff competition right now.
So you said earlier you hadn't read the 100-page festival celebration thing from last week. I can't remember the title. It was such a convoluted title, but there's the special 100-page Asian superhero special. Yeah. There's a very interesting story in there that was by Ram V that relates heavily to a character in Catwoman, which I will bring up when we get there. If you haven't heard what it revealed, then
a lot of context will probably be lost on me. Then, and again, I still plan on reading that issue, but with 100 pages to fit in before all these books.
I wouldn't say it's super relevant, but let's just say I was paying a lot more attention to a character in the issue because of what the special revealed about shoes. So,
okay, interesting. I don't know what it possibly revealed, but I'm sure we'll get there in due time. And everyone else already knows except me.
Yeah,
but...
It's a shame Matt's not here to explain, because Matt went into the history and talked about everything that it kind of like brings back and so on and so on. But anyway, I'll give you the quick bullet point later. Cool. When we're in that book, because obviously I don't want to just blow out spoilers out of timestamps before we get into each thing. So we all start off with the new book. So Wonder Girl issue 1 by Joelle Jones, writing and art.
Yes.
Of course.
No longer a mini, of course.
No longer a mini, just an ongoing book. Which obviously we're not upset by, or at least in theory. I mean, we'll talk about.
Or are we?
We'll talk about how we feel about this issue, I suppose, and see if we do have a change of opinion on that. So this issue, of course, tries to set up the context. Well, I won't even say. I mean, obviously it's setting up, but I won't even say set up. I'll say more tease the context of Yara Flor in the greater Wonder Woman and even DC, universe, but certainly in the Wonder Woman corner of it, and potentially throwing some interesting swerves into what she might represent to all the other characters, and what her place is in between all of these other Wonder Woman characters, and the opening teases some of her backstory. We see seemingly, I assume, her mother, essentially being killed, with a dude who looks a lot like Ares, with that helmet.
Very suspiciously like Ares. It never names him.
Never does. No,
it's very much the typical design of Ares with the helmet blacked out like that.
Yeah, this was a very effective opening, I thought, because it did this thing where all of the narration boxes, or not even narration, but the text boxes, they're all dialogue from the plane, because obviously we had that 2-3 page story from before. And whatever
it was in Infinite Frontiers era, actually, I believe.
Was it Infinite Frontiers Zero? So there you go.
I think it was, yes.
Once again, Connor's an idiot. But
as I was saying, I remember the event.
But it was that teaser. She was going to Brazil. She was getting on a plane, and that was basically the whole thing. She's on a plane. She's going on a plane. So, well, you can read this, and you get from the dialogue that she's on a plane, because it's like, oh, ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to be descending. Blah blah. But it was kind of neat to start this and go, oh, that's right, she was going on a plane. Like, it was just, it was a nice follow-on from that little
completely
tease.
Unnecessary. Like, if you didn't read that, you missed nothing, basically. No. Especially as that was one of the smallest parts of that issue. And this here jumps right in. It doesn't reference anything. It just follows on from it. Yeah,
there's definitely... I think you have to read that issue for certain other things going on in DC, because for Batman, for example, the stuff that it set up for the Bat world going forward was...
significantly bigger compared to this, yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, for just the sake of this book, yeah, it wasn't exactly essential. It was just a little tease, and that was all.
I think it'll still be really nice because they'll probably throw that in the trade, and it'll flow into the you don't even need to put an issue break in there. I think for that first one, just put those 3 pages.
I think you do. So what you do? You put that 3-page story before your title page, and before your credits. You put that before everything in the issue. You set it up as like a cold open.
You could do, yeah.
And then you get the title page with the credits and the copyright and all that, and then you get to issue 1. I think that's what you do in the trade. That's my advice, DC.
Let's see if they take it.
Do the 3-page cold open.
All right.
So, after that one blank page you always have, because you always have that one black page before you get to
obviously,
anything.
Yeah. But this is a really, to get to this, it's a nice open because immediately it's like a dream of some sort, because you've got the real world narration over it. Again, I say narration, the plain monologue.
Yeah,
because
I think why it contrasts so well is because it's such just a monotonous. Well, I wouldn't say lifeless, but it's it's just an everyday thing. You're on a plane.
Routine.
You hear the routine. You hear the, we all recognize this speech in some fashion or another. And it's
even if you've never been on a plane, you've seen a movie or a TV show where you've heard this speech over and over because it's the same. It might vary slightly on the wording depending on your airline, but more or less.
I mean, to be honest, when it starts off, I can hear the little noise that it plays before they start talking.
Little ding dong.
Yeah, which again, maybe not every airline uses, but it's been used in enough movies that I can hear that noise before they start saying it. But what's so effective is that they're fighting this battle. All of these women, Brazilian Amazons. I don't know if that's the correct term we're supposed to use here, but and Yara, as a child, not willing to stand down, grabs a knife, runs up, and stabs maybe Ares in the leg. And Ares, of course, isn't that hurt by it, but he's like, well, I have been challenged, I must kill this child, as unfortunate as that is. And then...
he just looks down and goes, oh dear, I do hate the optics of killing a child.
But, he has to do it, because otherwise he's weak, because he's not killed someone who's deemed to stand up against them. And... again, it's presumably her mother comes over and offers herself instead, and we get this kind of tragic. So, but what's so good about this is obviously it gives us the tragic and for the most part mysterious past, where it doesn't seem like Yara specifically remembers this in detail. This dream might be even not as clear to her as it is to us in terms of the context and what's going on, but. The best thing about it is that it shows her character, even as a child, in like this sets the table. This is like giving you a taster of this is who she's going to be. She's going to be willing to run in, even if sometimes it may be the stupid choice, because she's not willing to let the villain just get away with it, no matter what the context is. At least that's where she'll start. Maybe she'll learn lessons. She'll grow from there, whatever. But this was character appetizing at its best. Immediately, right at the start of the issue.
Yeah, it was real great stuff, and of course the art here is gorgeous. And lots of deep, bold colors, all in like blocks as well. It's not like super realistic detailed. It's like yellows against grays, reds, purples. It's all just in big blocks of chunks of people in one color, backgrounds in another.
Yeah, notably the characters tend to be in the sort of the gray color. The exceptions being when someone's actually in a moment of like violence.
When the combat itself's happening, they're in red.
Yeah, because when she stabs him in the leg, like both her and him are red, but the rest of the page they're both grey.
Yeah, it's the same on the very first page when the actual battle's happening. They're all in red, except for like her and her mother, who are we're saying mother, but the ones hiding are in the grey purple. Yeah,
and then the same with the beheading as well. The red for that page. Notably, or that panel, sorry, and red for also the reaction panel of Yara, who does seem to get some blood on her face, and that's maybe why it's still red, because the effects of that violence is still infecting the panel. Yeah. So as the issue goes on, and Yara's talking to this other passenger on the plane about, she's coming to Brazil. Her aunt never wanted to take her there, who looks after her. But all of a sudden, it kind of makes sense. Assuming this one who holds her at the end of this scene in the dream, or the flashback, whatever you want to call it, presuming this is the aunt, or at least someone who knows what happened there, you completely get why she doesn't want her to ever go back there, or even talk about like their time in Brazil and this past. Like, no, you're away from that. You're not part of this lineage. We're just over here.
Especially as the next few pages go on as well after this, where you see people reacting to her presence in Brazil, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe she was kept away for a reason.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that separately, because I think that's very specifically odd how everyone seems to feel or sense that she's in her homeland again, and what that maybe means. I want to say that there's a really inventive layout, which doesn't look inventive at a glance. This first page in the plane, where she's talking to the old woman.
I really like this as well.
Where it actually snakes around the page, even though it looks like a pretty typical, just boxes of typical comics. But obviously the bubble sort of takes you across instead of going down to the panel underneath, because it looks like two columns effectively, but it's not in how you read it.
And to go back across just by the way there's no overlapping bubbles in this time. The bubbles aren't even like leading your eyes in a certain direction, but just because of where the actual panel placement is, where it's kind of between the two, in terms of just its height. To go back across and then down. It flows so well. And like I say, it could easily have just been 2 rows or just a standard block of that 6.
Yeah, I think mostly I'm just impressed that it never became an issue. It never became a problem. It was just always, it still made sense the whole time. And I think the effect that it gives doing it this way, as opposed to just having a more traditional layout, which would be safer. And a lot of artists go the safe route because sometimes they do mess it up. Is that it kind of like I always like to compare panel layouts and panel sequencing to movie editing, because it's how I can sort of phrase it in a way that it translates, and I can sort of explain what I mean by the effect. This to me is the effect you have in a movie scene where you're not cutting to a new scene, but you're sort of chopping up the scene, so there's kind of a flow as it jumps from one part of the scene to the next part of the scene. But there's clearly chunks cut out of it, but it still flows really well, as if the conversation isn't being interrupted. And it's kind of obviously a really fake movie thing, because no conversation actually exists that way, but it kind of flows on as if the conversation is going by, even though there's these jumps in time in the actions.
I think as well, just like if you put this as, because it's essentially 6 panels ignoring the very final one. If you take it as 6 panels and just lay it out as a grid, it's fine. It would work. It would read functionally well enough. But I think the fact that you have to like move your eyes across back and forth gives it this physical jump that you're doing. that makes the passage of time seem a lot clearer than just move to the next panel because you're going backwards and forwards.
I just realized the shape it almost makes it a Flash logo, the way you read it. Because you start up at the plane at the top right.
Yeah.
And you sort of go diagonal to her looking at her brochure, and you have to go up to the right again for the next of the air hostess.
It's like directly across, yeah.
And then okay, you go straight down there, but then you go diagonally down again to the other side.
Yeah.
And then you go almost directly across to the other one, and you go diagonally down again. It's you get a bit of a lightning bolt kind of shape.
You do, yeah.
Through the ordering. It's very interesting, very, very. But it's notable that as soon as she someone's got a sign out, saying, John McClane, Mr. McClane, whatever, and she's like, California, and she's complaining, right?
And she's annoying this poor old woman who's just tried to be polite, and then by the end of this, she's like, oh, thank God, freedom! Don't have to listen to her anymore.
Yes, and for anyone who thought I was just talking nonsense there, go watch Die Hard, you filthy casuals.
I assumed everyone knew what you were talking about there.
I know there's going to be someone going, what's he talking about? She's not in California, she's in Brazil, you're not paying attention. Anyway, but yeah, we cut to Themyscira, and notably Nubia here, which, by the way, I love seeing this take, because all I've seen in Nubia, at least recently, has been the backup from the Future State stuff, right? And I love how much older she appears here. She looks like a sort of, not like an old person, but like a woman, like a grown woman who's now like 30 or whatever.
And is Queen Nubia.
And Queen Nubia, yeah, and she's tough, and she looks really, I don't know, strong and imposing, but not in like a intimidating way, but more in a sort of like like a strong ruler. She looks like she
looks like the part of leadership.
Yeah, she's got the cred. Now we go to Mount Olympus.
I just want to say, I love the sequence of these pages, where the names of the places come up and they're very stylized, and it's very different from the rest of the book, and it feels very classical, in that sense. It is harkening back to those things. It's very different to everything else in the book, which feels very modern.
Yeah. We go to Mount Olympus. We hear Hera also react to this, which is stronger. It kind of progressively in some ways gets stronger, because she drops a glass, whereas before it was just kind of like, hey, is it possible that so and so is back in Brazil? And then we get to Bana Magdal. Do you know what this is? Are these characters?
Yeah, these are the Amazon tribe that Artemis is from.
Okay. Well, it mentions Artemis here, actually. You're right, but
yeah,
I'm less familiar with these characters, so this one, like,
they're not used as often, but this is a thing.
It paints this picture that everyone is reacting, and that's the thing. Is the next page is this 2-page layout where Yara's walking outside the airport, and there's all these panels around her of just everyone in the DC universe essentially reacting, and this is including like Nightwing and Batman and Superman and Catwoman, and
and it's mostly just panels taken verbatim from them books. Like I recognize most of them. And obviously there is one or two from the Future State, Wonder Woman issues, or was it Wonder Woman that we had? Was her book just called Wonder Woman in Future State?
No, that was the other one. Hers was.
Because the other one was Immortal Wonder Woman.
Oh, in that case, it was just Wonder Woman then.
Was it just Wonder Woman? Yeah. So there's a couple of panels from that in there, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. No, but it's just, it's just a fun 2-page. But it makes it feel like her stepping back in Brazil is a big deal. Like, for some reason, her going back there and unlocking whatever her potential is going to be is going to make major waves for all these, particularly the Wonder Woman communities that we see. And we have, a pretty, again, strong showing. You have to set up her character, because as much as we've read the 2 Future State issues, we've read the tease from the Infinite Frontier issue 0, whatever.
Everyone has.
Yeah, it's very important for issue 1. The first part sets up what type of character, her fierce spirit that she has. The second part is about saying, okay, her presence here is a big deal, and it's going to create waves. The third part is giving us more of her current personality, with her, this bus driver and talking to him about the traffic and all the other people in the bus singing, and him kind of flirting with her, It's very pleasant. This is a good sort of like, okay, here's what the tone of the actual like main part of the book is going to be like when she's interacting with others. But the end of the scene, more importantly, is like, okay, here's her hero moment. This is her doing something before she even knows that she's special. This is her doing something because she just is a hero and she's going to try and do the right thing. Because there's been a car crash and she's going to try and help someone. And it's like fundamentals, just all these things neatly one after the other.
She's just a good person.
Yes. So really good stuff. I thought the art was really good. I thought it did a really good job of, without being sleazy, the way that she kind of leans in to check what's happening up ahead, and you can sort of tell the bus driver's like, damn, but without it being...
He was just like, yeah, so many distractions while he's staring up at her.
Yeah, so it does this thing of like making her feel like, okay, he's like so excited that this beautiful woman's in his presence and is like getting close to him, but it never feels like he's perving on her or the art's being pervy or anything like that.
I think it's notable that he's looking up at her face the entire time. I think that's what helps here.
Yeah, but notice that she comes from out of his box, out of his world, and into his world. It's it's a neat little touch. But she runs off to go help save someone from a car. There's an explosion, all the rest of it. They introduce themselves to each other. His name is Joe?
Maybe?
Joe? I have to admit, I have no idea how to pronounce that name. It's J-O and an A with an accent and then an O. So, if anyone who speaks Portuguese...
I'd have probably said, like, Joelle? But maybe? I don't know.
I think my biggest mistake I make sometimes with foreign names, or even just foreign words, is that sometimes I take all the vowels too literally, and there's usually less than what I think there is when I actually hear what it's supposed to sound like.
I think what it is as well is, what often happens is they're still saying all those sounds, they just say it quicker. So it sounds more natural when they say it. They're in there, but when we do it, we break it down a bit more because we're unsure on how to say it.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
So there's a 2-page layout where, going back to the 3 worlds is what I'll call them, where it sort of follows the conversation. We're all just basically discussing what to do. Like, we have to deal with this, Nubia is leaving. It's like, we have to like get her out of there. we can't let her be in Brazil. Whereas obviously Artemis and her crowd are like, we'll kill her. Like, she must be killed. So
Hera's got her own plan as usual.
Of course. I mean, maybe this Instagram dude's and he's intentionally annoying, don't get me wrong, this is not a critique of the book, but he's definitely the worst character in the book. If that makes sense.
Definitely want to punch him in the face.
Yes.
But that is it's very much like I say, it's exactly what I would expect from this type of person.
Yes.
I just would not like this type of person.
I just particularly hate the phrasing, which I don't think I've heard it phrased exactly this way, is make sure you pound that like and subscribe.
I've definitely heard that from someone at some point.
I've heard smash that like button, and that's why it's like everyone know just how much I hate the phrase pound that like and subscribe.
Are you telling me you're not ending the show this week with that?
Even though I fully get behind the idea that you should like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, but I hate the phrasing "pound the like and subscribe." But do make sure to like and subscribe. Stop trying to interrupt me. I'm trying to do a bit here where I keep saying it over and over again because I'm trying to convince people to do it, and you keep talking over me. Stop it, right?
Do it later. Do it at the end.
No, there's a bit. I'm doing it now. It was meant to be natural, and you're pointing it out. You're ruining everything because you keep addressing it. Stop it. You're the worst. You're the place where comedy goes to die. Yara's at a waterfall, and she looks down, and there's a big swirly happening in the water, which is not
a big swirly.
A big swirly, yes. Big sinkhole looking thing, and out comes a chain, and pulls her into the water. And her cliffhanger at the end of the issue is. Do you know what this creature is? Who this creature is?
I'm 90% sure this is a siren, based on the fact that before anything comes out of the water, you hear the music notes. Music out of water in mythology. No, I mean, my mind goes straight to a siren.
I was just half expecting you to actually name this being as if it was something specific.
Sirens generally don't have a specific name.
Well, yes,
as a rule. They're just sirens.
Yeah. She's big, she's snake-like, long white hair.
And I think it's as you say, a chain comes out. It's very notably her, bollers, that she has as Wonder Woman, her lasso equivalent.
I'll be honest, I don't know what it was called, so I just said chain.
Okay, fine, but worth noting that it is
ballers.
What we know. Ballers? I'm sure they're called ballers.
Ballers?
I'm sure they're called that.
That's maybe a weird word. I'll like that word. It's a weird word.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm misremembering.
I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
Either way, her lasso equivalent that we know that she has. Very interesting to see it kind of be here. And I know you're going to hate this, but Arthurian vibes. It's very Lady in the Lake here with the Lady in the Lake presenting the sword. I'm kind of getting vibes of that here with the siren presenting the the thing that makes her what she is. Aye,
but good. So I think it's a speculation here about why everyone's scared of her actually accessing her power and what she's going to unleash, either in herself or through her enemies that might re-emerge because she's there, or something. Like, what is the big worry? Why is everyone shitting themselves that Yara is going to cause an imbalance in the Wonder Force or whatever we're calling this?
It's a good question. I don't know exactly. Like, they're clearly scared of her. For sure.
And, I was listening to all the things this issue 1 does effectively. Maybe the one I should add on to that is give you a hook, a mystery, something that we don't have an answer for yet, that it's teasing heavily. But so on that front, it does everything in issue 1 does. It doesn't rush to her being in the costume. It doesn't rush to her, being so far. And maybe it helps that we read the Future State 2 issues. So we've had her in the costume. We know what she's like to operate as Wonder Woman. This is us getting to take her time and having her reach that point a few issues in when it's natural, when it makes sense, when they've built it up properly. So,
yeah, I think if in my head, I'm assuming the first arc of this is still what they pitched originally as a mini, which was like 6 issues. So I'm assuming that first 6-issue mini or so is going to be about her becoming Wonder Girl, essentially.
I'd suspect this is basically a Wonder Girl year 1. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it even says at the end, next a hero's journey begins, which. So it begins as implies it's not going to be there next issue either. So I would say probably not until the end of issue 5 or 6 we're kind of really at that place, which is fine.
Oh yeah, fair I prefer. I wouldn't want them to rush,
especially when it's this good.
Yeah, it's very good. The character is so likable and endearing, and I think the way it's teasing like everyone else reacting to her is so good. This is the thing where it's anchored more in the character than it is the mythology, although even though it is clearly loving using the mythology and like using that for like these big spectacle moments. But this, because I do think some people probably get confused as to why I like certain things and don't like other things when it comes to this stuff, because you assume, because I get really bored by mythology. The main Wonder Woman book, I feel, is the mythology is coming first, and that's the important part. Here, Yara Flor, who her character is, and what she's going to be is the important part. And
I think it's interesting how it does that without actually having that much of her in this book, in this issue anyway, because like the start is flashbacky stuff anyway, so let's not really count that. You've got the little bit of her on the plane. You've got 2 pages of that, and then you've got the extended sequence of seeing everyone react to her, and then you have the stuff with the bus and the accident. So it's probably less than half the issue that's actually her character in the present day running, doing stuff, especially with any dialogue.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though, because it's one of those things where the other characters are still talking about. In fact, one of the things that I always come back to when I'm complaining about the New 52 is how everything felt so insert. In almost every character's book when the New 52 started, it was the main character was in almost every single page. And it felt like the wider world was either not existing or felt very distant from them. And this is first issue. It makes her feel like part of a world. They've not interacted with her yet, but it doesn't matter. They're definitely going to. Like the characters are reacting to her existence and what it's going to lead to. Already, it feels like she's part of a larger world, and that her existence isn't just defined by her herself, and that's good for storytelling, because if your main character is not going to affect that, if everything's just built around your main character, even though technically that's always somewhat true, if it feels that way, it feels a little bit cold and insular, and this doesn't feel that already. So yeah, I mean, as far as issue ones go, is you don't get much better than this.
No, it's pretty up there. I think the only thing that will like hold it, I say hold it back, I mean, stop me giving it like the highest score possible, is that it just doesn't have the extra wow factor spark that I would give to something like that would be a 10. Like where it just like comes out of nowhere and blows your mind. Like I think like that reaction we had for the Future State issues when that first one came out, we were all just like, wow, this is so fresh. It's not quite got that sheen to it, but it doesn't do anything wrong at all.
No, I mean, alternatively, it could have hit an emotional beat, which is hard to do in an issue one, especially with a pretty much brand new character. Barring a couple issues, she's brand new. So, yeah, but it's one of those things where it fundamentally does a lot of things right, and other issue ones can often fail, especially when they think they can rely on previous things that have teased or been prologue to the main book or whatever. So, no, it was basically exactly what I hoped it would be, and teased some more and gave it a larger context, and I'm looking
very excited for more.
Yeah, to the year one, the origin of Yara Flor.
And we can now confirm we are glad that this is no longer just a mini.
That is true. Yes, we were being cagey before, but yes, this is no longer a mini series. So, what are you giving Wonder Girl?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
Issue 1. Yeah, I was thinking 9 out of 10. We talked about the art in the opening sequence, maybe not as much for the rest, but it is obviously very solid. Obviously, the ending with the siren is particularly, and of course, Connor recognizes Siren because his favorite TV show of all time is in fact Siren.
It's true.
Yes. So wonderful. All right. It's very expressive, I think. Was the other thing I wanted to add on. Yara especially.
Evocative would be the word I use, I think.
So cool. Justice League 61, Brian Michael Bendis with David Marquez on the main story. And we continue the journey to Naomi's homeworld. And this story is pretty simply the first moments of all the League kind of waking up in this world.
I actually think there's something interesting to talk about before we get to the story. There's an actual recap page. I know Bendis has been sneaking them in, like doing back in Superman, you talk about like the desk notes and stuff like that. But this is just a straight up, here's a recap page now with text.
But he's been doing that as well, though. Like that like throughout all of his DC stuff in the last couple of years, he's been doing recap pages left and right.
He has, but I think up until this point, they've all been kind of worked into the art and stuff like that, right? Whereas, as far as I'm aware, this is the first traditional recap page. That's
no, definitely not. It's definitely not.
Really?
This did not even faze me because he's definitely done this already before. Maybe even the last issue, Justice League might have had this.
Fair enough. I really did not like the text on that recap page. The colors on the especially the neon-y sort of green on the lines behind it made it very hard to read for my eyes. Don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't really think about it too much. I only kind of glanced at it, to be honest, because I didn't need it. But
that's fair.
Yeah. I'd appreciate it. I think the thing with the pacing of the story is that it's been so it's not been rushing through the story, so I didn't feel struggling. Like the big cliffhanger from issue 2 was very easy to remember, so I wasn't. Whereas there's books that are definitely arguably better than this is, even where I still struggle a little bit to remember exactly what was the last issue. The start of, for example, Catwoman this week, which we'll get to later. I was a little confused at first because I'm like, wait, I don't remember this has been set up last issue, and then but a couple of pages in it became clear what it was doing. But there's a moment where I almost doubt that I'm not supposed to know something yet because I'm worried that I've forgotten something from the end of last issue.
I've been there.
Yeah, it happens to me occasionally with comics. But yeah, so Brutus, of course. We start with him and he's and it was worth mentioning as well that Connor is reading this because of it's a Patreon pick. He would not choose to read this. He is.
Oh no,
he is made.
And for the record, I think this is by far the worst of the 3 issues.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
And I think I'll get more into it, but it's beyond just my standard Bendis dialogue critique. I have structural problems with this issue that I really dislike. That might become clear as we talk about it.
Sure. I generally pretty enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed the various characters and how this world's affecting them, where some powers are supercharged and Naomi's kind of fading like Marty McFly a little bit. I kind of love like just a simple little moment like Batmaning her out of the scene, because she's confronted by a bunch of thugs on this world, and he throws in like a smoke pellet and then like a batarang, and we just sort of see her like looking over his shoulder as he's presumably whisking her away, with a grapple gun or whatever it is, and then he's like shushing her, and it's like, yeah, I just like imagine the surrealness for her to be Batmaned out of a scene by Batman. It's just kind of cool. Canary's power is supercharged. She hits it and it sends like the shockwaves are so big that everyone goes flying through the air, and she's like, "Oh shit, that was bigger than usual." And this becomes kind of an anchor point for the issue as the other characters are kind of waking up. They all at a certain point hear Canary's scream, so they're not too far away from each other. They're all in the vicinity enough that they can sort of hear that, and
even if it is louder than usual, it's still reasonably close. Yeah,
they're close enough that they can all get back together again, more or less by the end of the issue. So Batman's investigating Naomi, not really sure about anything. That madman Bendis actually put in the DuckTales trick into the comic, which it took me a second to realize what he just put into it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a thing, I've heard of this, where if you just say DuckTales to someone, they'll hear the theme tune in their head and it'll calm them down, because it's impossible to be tense or agitated when you're going DuckTales. Oh, whoa! I can't even do it. I can't sing it. But
yeah, please don't try.
Yeah, but you'll hear it in your head. And I think the art in particular, Naomi's face after this moment where it happens, since she says, "Why did that work?" I think the shock. I think it's because you can sort of see her mouthing like the tune. Like her mouth is clearly, if not whistling, then making the sound of it. That is a neat touch. I thought it was charming. I'm sure Connor's going to shit all over it in a minute, but so a couple things here I liked. Particularly Black Adam showing up to help Superman, because Black Adam's kind of absent for a while. He's off panel, as it were, until Superman's getting his ass kicked. And now, to be fair, Superman is at a bit of a disadvantage because his heat vision is acting up, and he's having to sort of cover his eyes with his hand, and he's staying up in the sky so he doesn't accidentally hurt anyone. He's trying to stay away, all that stuff. And Brutus starts attacking him. I kind of appreciated some added context here, where they talk about how this world had its own meta uprising, which is kind of what led to the wars and kind of led to like everything that Naomi leaving and what happened to their family and all that stuff. To the point where the others are like, hey, maybe we should just go look for another world. Maybe like dealing with a world with all these metas is something we should just leave be. But Brutus is arrogant, whatever. But yeah, I particularly like the art though of Black Adam showing up, like that panel of him like hovering over with the lightning coming out of his chest, and it's all black behind him, black and blue, and he says unhand him. There's a fun element to him, of course, like coming to help Superman, but it was particularly imposing, I thought.
Actually, I really like the lettering here. Is a touch I do like. Where the unhand him is actually kind of mostly in the panel above, and it gives this sense that Adam is so big. Like, he's so much larger because his voice is imposing across other panels in this way.
And it's also in the previous panel, so it's also the idea that he hears him say it before he sees him, before he looks over his shoulder.
It is really strong lettering work, that.
So that's solid stuff. So most of the Justice League have sort of assembled by this point, and they run off to where Superman and the fight's taking place. Aquaman is notably absent, and there's like a page of him like just kind of crying because there's like no water in the world, I think. Is that what you got from it? He's
sensing death. I'm assuming the death of all the life that was here.
Yeah, maybe all the sea life. Yeah, maybe it's like so much for him to bear. Even Hot Girl says that she feels kind of supercharged and she feels great despite how bad this place smells. The big cliffhanger of the issue, though, the main story, is that when they get there, because you think, oh, Black Adam's here to take on this Brutus bastard. So now, he's done for, because Superman and Black Adam are both there, even with Superman being hampered. But when they get there, Brutus is standing tall, and he's got his foot on Black Adam's hand, who seemingly is either at least down, if not unconscious, on the ground, which is, a big deal. He took out Black Adam. Which does lead to the question, is there anything wrong with Black Adam's powers? Is his powers acting differently? Because everyone else seems to be on this Earth. Now, they are magic-based, I realise, but doesn't necessarily mean that they won't affect that. So there's questions to have there. Yeah, I typically... I know everyone else, or not everyone, but I know a lot of people tend to hate Bendis pacing. I think I kind of like it, especially in a team book, which is funny because, of course, the one thing that didn't get right with Young Justice was that Bendis team pacing, which I thought was completely absent. I think it's doing a much better job in this of feeling like what I expect a Bendis team book to feel like, for better or worse. Because if you hate that, you hate that. But
yeah, I that is part of what I hate so much about this issue is the pacing. In a larger overall sense, in that this issue does not progress basically at all, because we have the same beat with every character over and over. We have the same beat. They wake up. Oh, my powers are mostly supercharged for the most part. That's the case with most of them. So, oh, my powers are supercharged. Right, cool. Let's fight a few people, and then we'll hook up with everyone else at the end of the issue. That's it. Everyone just has the same beat, and I hate it. I don't need to see every single character go through this.
I do not hate it. That's really all I have.
It would be if they were going through completely different things, I would get it. But I did not have a problem with the first thing here where we see Canary. Oh, it's supercharged. I'm like, okay, and then you do it again with you do again with Naomi. I was like, okay, powers are on the fritz. Got it. By the time it's like, oh, Superman, powers on the fritz. Oh, look. Hot Girl. Oh, look, she's stronger than usual. I'm bored of this now. Everyone's just got the same thing. It's like, right, okay. It's just a scene of everyone doing the exact same thing, of them learning what we know as a reader. It's like, I know their powers are different at this point. I don't need to see this with every single character discover it. And it was just frustrating me by the end. And it felt like we were doing that instead of any actual progression.
The only one I'll critique there a little bit, or dispute, is Superman himself. A, because we don't see him discover it. He's already discovered what's going on with them by the time we hear from him. And I do think it's a bit of a wrench compared to everyone else's, because his is just outright dangerous and he can't control his heat vision. So it is a bit of a different... It's like more of a swerve and a problem that needs to be solved. I mean... Sure.
It's kind of weird watching that, seeing that after this week's Superman and Lois, right?
Yeah, it's funny that it kind of just happened to thematically or mechanically touch upon the same idea, but... Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm kind of enjoying the weird dialogue between Brutus and his hench person. I think it's definitely weird. It's definitely Bendisy. What I will critique though is I will say that all of Bendis's villain creations, at least all of the monsters or aliens or because I'm sure he's probably created a couple of fun things when he did stuff. He did stuff like Alias, he did stuff like the more grounded street level stuff. I'm sure some of his villains from there probably did feel great and had a lasting impact. But something about every villain that I've seen him create, at least certainly since he joined DC, some of them are fun enough to actually experience in the story itself, right? I think Red Cloud was a fine idea. I mean, probably the most interesting villain he made in his Superman stuff was the woman from Earth 3. I can't remember her name now. This is the problem. Time passes and I forget. But the woman from the head of the secret underground who's been off Superman's radar because she's good at hiding from him, right? All the ideas with her were great. And she's probably the one that's going to have the most lasting impact, aside from presumably her name, but I'm just terrible with names, so I wouldn't read
it. Says a lot that you're saying that description. I'm like, I thought that was Red Cloud.
No. But Rogol Zar, this Brutus guy, they're very big and bulky. I mean, you could probably just swap their designs.
Zumbido, whatever his name is.
Yeah, you could just swap their designs, and it wouldn't matter really. That's the funny thing about it. And I was looking at him in this issue and going, yeah, I'm never going to remember this guy's name in a couple of months, once the story's done, and I'm never really going to remember the design fondly. It has this problem that I have with like what says like Gundam and Gundam style stuff, where I just feel like all Gundam essentially look the same. They're different colors and stuff, and they have different stripes and whatever, but it all just looks the exact same to me. I feel like these Bendis big bulky villains all look the exact same to me. They're interchangeable from a style point of view.
I would argue, but I mean, the only other one I know I've seen for sure is Rogolzar. I don't remember what Rogolzar looks like.
And don't worry, I'm not saying they look the same. Rogolzar does look different from this guy. If you put them side by side, they're definitely different. But what I'm saying is they're big and bulky, a little bit over-designed, and ultimately there's nothing simple about them to leave a lasting impression, where most of the villain designs, or even hero designs, that do last, right? Now, admittedly, one of the things that we have to acknowledge is that, yeah, there's a lot of bad ones from the Golden Age, Silver Age, the Bronze Age, whatever, that all didn't last, and the ones that we know are the ones that lasted, so it feels like they didn't have as many mistakes, but they definitely did. If you actually go back and read all those issues, there's probably thousands and thousands of failed characters that everyone was glad never came back. Fine, whatever. But, it's a bit, I think because we have so much comic history behind us now, it does feel like a bigger deal, at least on a personal level, when a writer tries to create a new villain for a character or a team.
It's very interesting because so far you've kind of been torn on the design, which theoretically is not Bendis' fault. That would be the artist designing them, unless you're assuming this is Bendis' direction to the artist is big, bulky.
I assume he has some direction for it. But I mean, maybe this is my critique of just a lot of modern designs that become the villains and stuff. Obviously, a lot of alterations to like costumes do end up pretty bad, but I do think that on average that tends to work better, because I think a modern artist can do we'll do a new take on this outfit, and a lot of the time it'll end up being over designed, but sometimes it can result in a fun new variation on something. But the fundamentals are still there, and the fundamentals are what I feel I don't know, get really generic with a lot of this stuff. And
do you know what this guy reminds me of? And this will probably mean nothing to you unless you run a Google it really quickly. But the Kunari from Dragon Age 2, because they redesigned the Kunari in Dragon Age 2. In the first one, they just look like slightly bigger people. But with the horns, the kind of grayish skin tone, the big bulky kind of, it's very much, they look a lot like that. And I'm like, yeah.
And again, I'm not saying this looks like this, right? Just in the same way that I wasn't saying this guy looks like a Gundam. I'm just comparing the idea that all the Gundam look kind of alike and generic to me. This guy with Rogolzar and all these other big guys just kind of feel big and generic to me. The other example I'd give you from a video game would be that game that came out at the launch of PS5 that I would never play in a million years, but all of the characters in that just had too much armor on, looked too bulky. Like, everything Warhammer looks really generic and bland to me.
Godfall.
Godfall, that's the one. Yes. That looked like over-designed trash to me as far as design goes on those characters and outfits.
I'm not arguing with you on that.
I don't know. I was feeling it as I was looking at this issue, but I mean, as far as the story goes, I don't necessarily mind the pacing, especially since this is Bendis' one book, and I think because it's not double shipping, because he's not doing like 5 other books right now, it's faring better.
I think this is like, this issue annoys me more that it's not double shipping, if that makes sense. In terms of like, if you're pacing like this for once a month, that's painful.
Okay, I'm cool with it. I know Matt implied on Twitter he was still annoyed about probably the stuff we debated last time, but
the Naomi stuff, what was it, Mega Super or something that they're calling her now? Batman, just like to Superman, I think she's like a Mega Super.
Oh, right. I don't know. Is that what he was complaining about? I don't know what he's doing. I didn't even see him complain about anything specifically. I just saw him say that if he was on the show, we'd be debating something.
Well, that's what he was complaining about last time, wasn't it? The Naomi focus.
Naomi focus, but not this Mega Super thing you're talking about.
No, but I'm assuming this is an extension of that, like it being a Naomi book. It's about her mega power. Sorry, that's what the phrase that Bendis is throwing in here.
Yeah, I would assume. Although I felt she was in less of this issue, to be honest. She had that one big scene with Batman and sort of the conversation after, but
I don't disagree. Yeah. I think she was in less because we did the same, the beat with everyone.
Yeah.
But I I assume it's more just teasing this stuff about her in this book as opposed to in her own book in the future. I'm assuming that's what Matt was referring to. I could be wrong and way off base, but
I mean, I'm not particularly fussed about that. I like when Bendis is on, I tend to like his dialogue and the characters and all that stuff. But we go through this discussion every week, so I'm not gonna, or every time there's a Bendis issue, so I'm not even going to go into it again. But I had mostly a fun time. And there you go. And the art's really good. So
the art is good. The art I have very little to complain about. Like, maybe Bruce's design aside.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's design. I mean, not the design's not part of an art thing because it is, but it's one of those things where
we're not going to complain about that every single issue.
And maybe in this case, okay, maybe Marquez is the one who actually designed this guy because this is where he originated. But if in the next Justice League story you have to switch artists to someone else and they're still using Brutus, like I can't really blame the new artist for just the design.
Absolutely, which is why I wasn't really. I'm not holding that against this issue in particular. It's more of a general thing, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be rating the main story then.
Ooh, 3.5. Repetitive, boring trash.
I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed all the characters, discovering how things are. I'm fine with the pacing. I thought the cliffhanger was good. I really loved the Black Adam moment coming out to save Supes. Particularly the art in that as well was really good. So, I'm happy to give it the 8. I was debating between the 7.5 and the 8. I think I'm going to stretch to the 8 because it was such a pleasant, easy read. I'm happy to do it. So there you go. But yeah, Brutus is a really generic design. It was last issue too, but it just for some reason it was sticking in my head more as I was reading this issue. But probably because we had scenes of them talking to other characters that weren't in the Justice League. All right, backup story again. You need to talk about that. Justice League Dark.
Yeah,
the thing.
Yeah, it's bloody good, is what it is. It picks up exactly where we left off. Which is worth knowing because obviously last issue we actually had a bit of a gap between things. But this time we do pick up exactly where we picked up with Ragman in the bookshop fighting the mythical creatures that have been brought to life by Merlin out of the book. Manticore specifically is what he's fighting when we see him. It's very Librarians, this actually. You watched some Librarians, right?
Nope.
Did we not do the first season of that?
Nope.
Okay, fair enough. I thought we did.
Never seen an episode of it.
It's got your boy from Angel in, so I thought maybe you did.
But Lindsay from Wolfman Heart, you think he's a selling point for a whole show? It's
very good in it, to be fair.
It's a bit of a stretch.
He's very good in that show. It's a shockingly enjoyable show. I recommend it. But anyway, it feels totally like it's cribbing from some of that stuff, and I'm having fun with that because that's great. But the rest of the Justice League Dark, show up to come and help. Deal with the creatures. Zatanna does some backwards magic to bind them back into the pages, essentially. So they're no longer causing chaos. And they talk about, okay, well, what does Merlin want? And they're like, well, they conclude he's after this book that may or may not exist, the Eternity book. They're like, we don't even know if it ever existed. But Constantine's like, well, if it did, if it ever will exist, it'll be in this mythical library, the Library of Babel, which, interesting, the book that Merlin brought all this stuff to life from was this Borgia's book, or his original works, the manuscripts, and it's from one of his stories that this Tower of Babel exists, where it comes from. So that's why it seems Merlin was bringing that into the real world, or bringing it to life as somewhere that he could access, as opposed to the creatures were just a byproduct, so to speak. They were a side effect of just the thing that he actually wanted. So they go there, and it's a very interesting design. It's an infinite library where it's an infinite sphere, each made up of hexagonal rooms that are just, slot into place forever, basically. And every book that's ever been written or will be written is in this place. It's outside of time. It's very much I'm getting vibes of the Dreaming library from Sandman. And the final beat is, they go in there, they go to see essentially the librarian to try and find it. Because, they're never going to find this one book in all this, but maybe he might. And I don't know if it's supposed to be him, but there's enough there that is like, this could be a redesign of Lucian from the Dreaming. I'm like, maybe this is. And the lettering strongly reminds me of Lucian from Sandman. It's just a significantly younger look. But it's got a bow tie, so I'm like, maybe this is Lucian. Be very interesting if it is, if we're going to be playing with the Dreaming stuff. Always love it when DC Universe kind of plays with the Sandman stuff. All that stuff is great. There's a very small subplot as well where the knight, the female knight who was guarding the Grail that Merlin stabbed, that we assumed was dead, is not. They find she's in a hospital. They found her and put her in hospital. She recovers in like a matter of hours. And she is hearing a voice of someone. It's very unclear who, but it starts giving her instructions. And it's like, hey, follow my voice. I'll lead you to me. And she gets on a plane. She does some magic to show them that she has a passport. Very Doctor Who psychic paper. That's what it is. And it shows she's landing in Gotham. And it's pretty interesting. I don't know exactly where that's going, but she's en route. It's tying in with this stuff still. It's still teasing, Merlin doing his own thing, and we're not entirely sure of why. But I'm really into it, and for 10 pages, this packs a lot in. Like I say, it's broken up into 3 sections with the subplot with the knight in the middle. But it feels like it moves at a really good pace that gives you a lot of flow and story. It's densely packed, but not awkward or unwieldy to read. It's got a real good flow to it. Art's really solid still. The page that reveals the library is particularly fantastic because it describes it as a sphere made up of the hexagonal rooms. And it's a really smart thing where it's this kind of 2-page thing where we see all the hexagonal rooms inside a circular layout, which it has this really nice effect. Great stuff. Yeah, I mean, this backup, probably like an 8.5.
Okay, cool. I was totally listening and paying attention to all of that.
Yes, I'm sure you were.
All right, very good. Okay, The Flash, 770. Jeremy Adams writing with Kevin Maguire, Jackson Herbert, and Brandon Peterson on art. Did you read this?
I did. I can tell you now it'll be the last issue I do read because I thought it was thoroughly mundane.
I thought it was alright. I had fun with the last issue. I had a decent amount of fun with this one. I thought there was some nice moments. Obviously too many artists is a definite complaint. I thought the art was good at the start. Like I actually kind of liked the deep shadows and the early J stuff.
I really don't like their faces in that first couple of pages.
But the faces I didn't like. Barry Allen, when it cut back to like the trio in present day, Barry Allen in some panels had this really round, childish looking face at times. It was really all over the place. In that sense,
I don't think I really like much of the art in this issue. Which is, it's something like, it's just that there's different artists, which is never good, but I don't particularly love any of it.
No, I like the first art, the first batch of pages, which is Jay getting this mission from the president to go with the Ray to try and steal the Spear of Destiny. I'm actually curious to see what Matt thinks of this issue, because it's very Indiana Jones, Jay Garrick, in a lot of ways.
Is Matt reading this book? Because I know he didn't read the last issue.
I don't know if he's reading, but he might catch up. I don't know.
That would be a very Matt thing to do, wouldn't it?
But no, I was into the art in the first batch of pages. So we actually get a little bit of Jay here before Wally shows up. This makes it. I liked how this shook up the formula, because it wasn't just okay, we're starting where we left off when Wally jumped in Jay's body at the end of last issue.
It's like half the issue before Wally shows up.
Yeah, which is good, I think. I like all the context and the fact that there's a story ongoing when Wally interrupts everything and it becomes this thing. I also love that in present day, Barry calls Jay and says, "Hey, do you remember this mission from the 40s? Can you tell me about it? Like, what's going on?" And part of there's obviously going after an artifact like Spear of Destiny is very Indiana Jones, but what really made me feel Indiana Jones, other than the fact that there's also Nazis, is the guy who actually gets there first and has the spear, has the hat on. He reminds me a lot of the villain from the first, from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I can see it.
I was getting vibes of that guy. So because he has it, he's able to disable the powers, and he takes them both prisoner. And Hitler's in this book. Hitler gets the spear, and he's all ready to do his thing.
He's the Ubermensch.
He's there, which was the end of the last issue. That was the tease, that moment. So there's a lot of stuff here where Wally's now in Jay's body, is talking to them in present day, and Ray's like, "Who are you talking to? Why is he crazy?" Because what part of the thing before this is that Ray's like atheist, and he kept saying that he didn't believe in a god because Jay prayed a couple of times or whatever, and he basically, when Jay was dying as they were being held prisoner, he said, "Okay, you know what, God, fine. Like, please, if you want to pull off a miracle, do it now." And then that's when he gets hit by the lightning and Wally goes in his body. But then he's very confused as to why, from his perspective, Jay is acting so weird and seems to be talking to other people and saying things like, "Google it. Like, Google the layout of this ship so you can get me a way out," and things of that nature.
Yeah, and he's literally going, "It's in the past. I'm sure you can find it."
Yeah. He's got a point. I think that's fair. So it's got them dressing up. We get punching of Hitler, which is actually Jay. Basically, he stops their conscious minds, but technically that only disables Wally. So Jay gets back in control and is able to punch Hitler. It's kind of the big moment. I actually thought this was a nice little Golden Age style story with the Wally spin on it. I like that it felt different from the last issue, and I think again, my bigger complaints with this arc was really right at the start when it was having to lead in heavily into the why is Wally wanting to retire and the Heroes in Crisis stuff. Once it got going, don't get me wrong, it's far from the best of what DC's putting out right now, but this is a fairly enjoyable sort of romp of a story with various Flash history and playing with things. I mean, obviously the final page when Wally jumps again to whoever speedster he's going to next. Not only is he jumping to Thawne and Reverse Flash, but he's jumping to a very classic looking Legion of Superheroes art style. And I kind of popped because I liked the end of the last issue when it was like, oh, he's going to be Jay next and it's going to be in the 40s. Like, oh, that's a really cool idea. So far, I think they've done a good job of ordering what these different speedsters and places are, because I think the least interesting one was the first one, at least at face value. Obviously I did enjoy the story once it actually played out, but at face value it was the one that was like, oh, okay, Flash goes to the future and there's a bunch of like sci-fi stuff going on. I feel like we've seen that more than anything when it comes to Flash.
Yeah.
But then you go to Jay in the 40s, and then you go into this Silver Age looking Legion of Doom at the end. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, you know what, this is progressing where each new era that he's going to, each new sort of scenario is almost more interesting than the last, or at least, if not more interesting, the Jay Golden Age stuff, it's at least different enough that I don't feel like we're retreading ground, and it's interesting on its own right that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm game for this. I'm game for an issue with him pretending to be evil and the comedy that might come out of that whilst trying to solve whatever the Speed Force problem is in this era. So I had fun. The art is definitely, all over the place. I definitely don't like the modern trio art with them.
No, and I have some real pacing problem with the modern stuff as well, in terms of the breakdowns of the art. There's a bit where it cuts back to them, and Ollie goes, who has the spear now? And then Barry goes, Wally, who has the spear? And I know there should be a pause in there, but where Wally's not answering because he doesn't want to say it. And it's like, Wally, who has the spear? And that's when he goes, Hitler has the spear. But the way it's kind of paced on the page, they both just ask the question right after each other. There's no pause, there's no break, there's nothing to give me any reason why they should just ask it.
That's a fair critique. That said, though, when he did have to say Hitler, I still laughed a little bit. Because it's the worst possible answer. It is the worst possible answer you could give.
It is. And I think that's why it annoys me more, because like I can see that joke. I can see it being paced really well and it being funny. But the way it was, I was just like, I think it was told quite badly. And I don't know. I'm assuming that's presumably an art problem, not breaking it down into enough panels. Unless the script explicitly said it was on these panels, and give a panel layout. I don't know how the relationship's working from that side of things. But either way, I felt it kind of ruined the pacing of that entire joke for me, and it could have fell flat, unfortunately.
One thing I will also say I like about this is I'm liking more and more Wally's voice in the narration, particularly. When I was reading his narration early on, it was definitely reminding me of like classic Wally as the Flash narration. I was feeling that voice coming through again. I felt like I was reading Jonesy's Flash, or I was reading whatever. It kind of felt of that in tone, and I appreciate that. It's not that it's doing a knockout story by any means, or it's doing the next big epic that's going to be remembered fondly. But if this is the solid 7 or thereabouts out of 10 Flash book that we've got for a while, I'm not that mad, really. I mean, they can't all be the home runs that many of the other books are right now. That's okay.
No,
I think because of all the baggage coming into this series, and because the Future State stuff was so bad, like, I think I was expecting a train wreck, and instead I got, oh, this is actually decent fun. It's just, there are critiques. There's things to complain. The art's the biggest thing, and there's too many artists for a start. But
yeah, I think like I don't need it to be a knockout run. Like I say, if I did feel like this was a 7 out of 10 book, I'd be fine with that. The problem is I'm not feeling that. Like a lot of that is the art that I'm really not enjoying. I think pacing of the issues from the writing side of things isn't great. There's just enough things adding up that I'm like, this is kind of really mundane, and kind of just I feel like I'm just going through the motions each time I'm reading an issue rather than enjoying a story.
I haven't so far, and I will say that I keep thinking I'm going to feel that way. Like I've kind of put this off almost every time. This is the 3rd issue of the run, and almost every time I've been pleasantly surprised with like, oh, I'm actually kind of enjoying this. Oh yeah, I did kind of like the last issue. Now I'm thinking about it. Like I still have this preconceived notion that it's not going to be that good, but then I read it and go, you know what, I'm actually kind of having fun with the characters and like how it's playing. And
I will say it's not as terrible as we were assuming it was going to be beforehand. I definitely don't think that. I don't think it's very good, but it's not bad. It's just really kind of mundane, mediocre for me, at least. But I mean, if you're enjoying it, fair enough. I can definitely see people enjoying this more than I can. Let's put it this way. There are definitely some books that we hate that people love, and I just don't see it at all. Whereas this, I'm like, yeah, sure, I can see people getting enjoyment out of this one.
Well, the big thing is just to take on the characters. It's Wally's voice, but it's also Wally interacting with Barry, interacting with Jay, and it's not even interacting with Jay necessarily technically, but but the way that between the interactions from Wally and the Ray versus Jay and the Ray play out, like in the scenario in general, I think it's it's kind of like, and I know you're not liking, or you didn't like Rorschach enough to keep reading that or even bother trying it. I can't remember if you read issue 1.
I did read the first one.
Yeah, but me and Matt like praised the shit out of that last week, and we were saying it's like the best thing they're putting out right now. It is DC's best book right now, and I'm only bringing that up because just for this comparison, this Rorschach is your prestige HBO show or whatever you want to pick.
If that's your Breaking Bad in this, because I think that's a safe choice for a lot of people.
Sure, this is your network TV romp, but better than the actual Flash TV show. I don't know if you saw the poster they put out with Impulse on it, but it looks rough.
It's not good.
It looks.
All I'm saying is, I'm having a lot more fun watching Riverdale than I did reading this issue.
Well, to quote the Ray, or paraphrase the Ray from this issue, I didn't ask for a co-host with brain damage, so here we are.
It's fair.
So yeah, I mean, I'm having decent fun with the Flash. It's not like a knockout thing by any means, but I think the story is actually flowing fairly well and far more coherent than a lot of what we got after Williamson, or even a lot of what we got in the back half of Williamson's run in a lot of ways. So but because it's doing the Wally stuff and because it's incorporating more of the Flash family, it almost feels like Williamson's hands were tied a lot. I wonder how much more Williamson wanted to do with those other characters and incorporate them, but he couldn't because of Didio, because of who was in charge, and also because that was also around the same time that they were ruining Wally off in Heroes in Crisis.
I would say definitely probably because he introduced Bart in was that issue 50, and then 50, he was like I'm down. I've got big stuff for him later, and then nothing.
Which and maybe all those plans having to change is why the back half of his run does feel a lot more off than the first half.
Very possible. Yeah.
I would suspect.
And while benefit of the doubt on his part, the best writers rise to that challenge and still bring out good stories despite editorial pressures, right?
I mean, true, but I think that is throwing him under the bus by saying, well, he should do better. Because to his credit, everything else he has done since The Flash has all been good. So
I agree, which is why I'm not being too damning on it. And look, he handled it, assuming that any of this is true, he handled it significantly better than Rob Liefeld did this week.
Because his Batman Superman issues were great. Robin so far has been a surprising little gem. There's only been one issue, one issue in the backup tease, but
it 2 issues worth. But it feels a lot more enjoyable and exactly the tone that it should be. When I think that's maybe the biggest worry that New 52 gave me about comics is that they just certain books just won't get what people who like the character want from that character. And so far, whereas in Robin, we like seeing Damian being a little shitbag.
Yeah, Damian being in a Mortal Kombat style tournament is the perfect application of that character. But so far, I would say across the board, I'd say that most of the mainline DC books right now seem to understand the appeal of their character. So, with that in mind,
almost aggressively so.
With that in mind, what are you rating Flash?
That's like a 5.
I 7. I'm even. You know what? I'm going to 7.5. I had so much fun with the Hitler punching and the various Flash characters interacting with each other and whatnot that I'm going to go there. Admittedly, maybe I shouldn't because of the art changes and some of the art being aggressively mediocre. I wouldn't say outright bad because it's not terrible art. It's not like John Romita Jr. or like whatever.
No, I will agree to that.
Yeah, but just aggressively mediocre. I did like the art in the first chunk though before the art started to change. All right, Nightwing issue 80. Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo on the art. So here's the thing. Me and Matt said last week that Rorschach is the best book that DC are putting out. And I'm standing by that. But discounting stuff like that, which is like the separate minis and prestige
the
books,
black labels.
Yeah.
And...
if we're talking mainline, ongoing DC books, in walks Nightwing to take that crown. And
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd give it the crown immediately.
No, I think I'm kind of there. Like I mean, obviously, I felt super attached to it after that first issue with the emotional Alfred stuff. Last issue was great, building up to the heart robbing scene. Also murder, but just heart robbing, I think covers it. This issue, I think, did such a good job of again just solidifying everything I'm liking, not only about Nightwing, but just like the books in general right now. Is the cohesive world that they're all sharing with each other. Because I know, like Matt and you're about to do it on the show, are going to fawn over a certain moment with Tim.
I did it on Twitter before Matt did.
Yeah.
Matt then tagged me in his one, going, "Yeah, see, I thought the same."
But this is the thing. I could jokingly sit and make fun of that moment or whatever just to wind you two up. But I honestly. I like the interaction with Tim in this issue. It feels the relationship that Dick and Tim should have. More than that, I mean, the Dick and Bab stuff in this book's been great so far. And, if the idea that Tom Taylor understands what we want from a Nightwing book, like, holy shit, is he nailing it. because this issue, the police show up at Nightwing's door because the homeless guy got murdered. Did he interacted with them because he paid for his hotel room, so that's how they've tracked him down. And Babs is on her way out. She's like down the end of the street, and he calls us, "Hey, I'm maybe being accused of murder. Can you come back and be my alibi?" Because it's not that she's making anything up. She is his alibi. She was there, which is a point again, which makes for some humor later when Tim's like, "So Babs spent the night, did she?" Like, I was on the couch, and then Babs is like, "I'm still here in the conversation. I'm Oracle. You realize what Oracle is, right? What I do." But the moment in the when she's talking to the police and they're sitting at the table, and she's like, "I was here all night," and the detective says, "What is the nature of your relationship?" The art of Dick sort of like just
puff of breath.
Yeah, the puff of breath, and like her saying that's not relevant, and just that moment, the pacing of that moment, and just how it plays into those two characters.
This whole sequence is gold because you got that puff of breath, him going, "I've been wondering how to broach that myself, but probably not an interrogation." She's like, "That's not relevant." "Well, I think it's relevant." "Oh, why?" "I have a law degree." And he goes, "Oh yeah, so do I." like he'd forgotten.
Yeah, super delightful. Obviously, they're going to look into who this is. Calls in Tim. Going to go to the kids' homeless camp that's set up the tent town.
Calls in Tim, and agrees that maybe he is the best Robin.
Maybe agrees. The exact phrasing is, many think that he is the best Robin, and he says that he totally gets it. That does not necessarily mean that he thinks it's definitively true.
It's not. I will concede. But this whole Tim being a little shitbag, giving him the wallet on the chain, that
was a good callback. That was a good callback.
You confront a soft metal band in the early 2000s, Tim's still got it.
So, and the fact that they are traveling via being on top of a train and having to do the Matrix bullet dodge pose to not get hit by things in the tunnel is it's all just very delightful banter between them as they're explaining the case and talking about what's happening.
When he gets back and there's the dog, he's like, "Oh, you got a dog?" And Bab's like, "Oh yeah, just go to the pound." He's like, "Yeah, that sounds plausible."
So they go to the camp. Tim's undercover with the dog because he's younger. He's maybe closer to the age of all these kids that are here, the homeless kids. And actually, just a note here, because I'm seeing the part where they asked about Babs spending the night and him saying he slept on the couch. There's the panel where Babs says that she, "I'm still on this channel, I'm still listening to this." The art there for that one little panel, the cartoony kind of
goes very chibi, doesn't it?
Yeah, I kind of appreciated that because it almost kind of felt like it's coming from the phone. It felt like not an emoji, but an avatar.
You feel it like, again, to go back to film language, that cut where it pops in with the extra person on the phone, you see it cut to them and it goes almost split screen, or there'll be a little insert of them somewhere. It has that effect here.
Yeah, so the kid of the murdered man does talk about the fact that his father's heart was taken, but he's too scared to leave. He thinks he's safe here at the tent town. And then in walks a couple of C-listers, Executioner and is that just Brutal?
Brutal? Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I've heard of Executioner, sorry, Electrocutioner. I'm sure there's Executioner as well. Sounds like a villain that's running around.
But that almost definitely is.
Yeah. But they came in basically because you guys are pickpocketing and this is blockbuster territory. Yeah, you give us a cut. Obviously Nightwing and Tim jump in and get some fun action. I assume you enjoyed Dick putting his sticks together to make a staff and throwing it to Tim.
I did.
Yeah,
I did. I've missed seeing Tim with the staff.
So yes, very, very good stuff. I particularly like the page where Dick grabs the staff or grabs Tim's hand rather and sort of flings him past them. There's a good sense of motion between them, and them taking on
the back and forth with them.
Yeah,
down the 4 or 5 panels.
It's basically a tag team kind of special maneuver because it's 2-on-2. It's really good stuff. But there's a fire. There's a fire that breaks out. It's not these two that have done it.
But it is someone intentional because it's clearly arson.
Yeah. So Dick has to fly around, help some kids, save them, and the big tease at the end though is when he looks over and sees who started the fire. we all started the fire. I think you'll find. It was always burning. Something.
Since the world's been turning, I believe.
Since the world's been turning. Just Huey from the boys. Shout out to Huey. But yes, the Heartless, whoever this is standing, and it's a gorgeous page with the flames in front of him, and just like Dick's like hand in the foreground. So, really good stuff. I mean, I think, in some ways, this issue is probably the least like impressive from like a craft point. Not that there's not good like pages and panels and stuff in there, and like the way it tells the story, but in terms of, we talked a lot in the first issue about the emotional stuff and about like how it's setting everything up. It's issue 2, there was a lot of praise about how they made us care about this new character just in time for him to die, and the fact that tied into Dick's efforts to help the neighborhood and all these things. So from a story craft, I think this might be the one that's the most straightforward, because okay, there's been a murder, we're going to investigate it. It's just storytelling 101. There's nothing particularly special. But what this does so well, and I mean the book's been doing it well anyway, but between the Dick and Bab stuff, and between the Dick and Tim stuff, and the overall kind of aura of the Bat family are there to call upon each other when need be, and the fact that it feels like that, I love that between this and then another 1 or 2 books, I despite the fact that there's no Batgirl book right now, I don't feel like I'm missing Babs, because there's a good presence of her in a solid capacity in multiple books, where it doesn't feel like she's just been forgotten about, which is the problem. That was why for so long, especially in the New 52 era, when there wasn't a character or a book for a specific character, it basically meant that the character was almost nothing but maybe a background image in some books, and that was it. They felt so far removed. So I want to praise this, because I think this was, along with Batman, which is doing a good job of it as well, with Batman with Oracle and Harley and the other things going on, where it feels like there is a shared universe between them in a way that doesn't feel like it's just a gimmick. It feels like, no, this is a family of characters who all know each other. The way they're interacting feels like it's actually acknowledging what we as the audience care about their interactions and care about their connections with each other, as opposed to just being, and some might argue that as some sort of level of fan service, but the funny thing is that I think fan service in comics is when they just throw them together, but the writer doesn't understand why we like them together. Whereas here, between the scene where they're talking about the relationship and the nature of the Bab-Dick's relationship, between Dick's like thoughts about Tim being the best Robin, Taylor clearly understands why we like these characters together. Not just why we like them on their own, which we do, but why we like them together. And this felt like, yeah, like I don't know where Tim is in the grand scheme of things right now, because Young Justice is done, and there's not like there's a Tim book maybe coming.
I guess he's Robin again now at the minute, and we know there is a Robin Tim book coming by the person who did the Future State thing.
But even without that, this book just makes it feel like, yeah, he's out there being Robin. He exists. He feels like he's Robin from mid to late 2000s again. Nightwing feels like he's Nightwing from the 2000s again, and not in the bad ways. They're still progressing. They're still letting the fact that Alfred's dead. They talk about it. It affects them. There's still progression, but it feels like, and I've had this conversation before where I've talked about how we don't. Obviously we want comics to move forward, and one of the biggest problems with comics is that they don't move forward enough with a lot of characters. But when we say we want to go back to pre-New 52, it's not that we don't want things to progress, it's that things were erased and then there's no progression at all, because we're just doing either the old things again, or we're doing some new version of things again.
I want to go back to where we were and continue progressing from that.
Exactly. And it feels like, when Rebirth started, a lot of it was like, okay, it feels like we're kind of getting to a place where we're fixing the New 52, and maybe it'll take some time before it really feels that we're in that era again. And I think that's kind of why I'm digging DC Comics so much right now, is that a lot of it...
just feeling that way.
Sorry?
It's only just feeling that way now, isn't it?
It's only just now. And it's not that Rebirth didn't do the right things. It did. But it wasn't going to happen overnight where it felt like that again. And yeah, part of it might be Didio and some of the other staff to higher up leaving was a big deal. I don't know.
Did you read about Tynan's rejected pitch for Nightwing a few years ago?
I didn't. I saw the image on the article though, with the sort of Daredevil style mask.
Super interesting. Just to real quick, the idea was it was after Forever Evil. Mm-hmm. It was going to be didn't tell they weren't going to tell us it was a Nightwing book. It was going to be Nightwing died in Forever Evil, and we were going to be under that impression as readers as well. Whereas in the end result, we kind of knew the whole time what was going on. But it was going to be this new book. It was going to follow John Blake, which you might recognize that name from a certain movie. Was going to be working in Bloodhaven and doing some vigilante stuff on the side. But then there was going to be someone else who was taking up the Nightwing mantle, and he had to stop it and take it back, basically. The problems were then, the reasons it fell through are the person he wanted to be taking up that Nightwing mantle and stealing it from was Owlman, which made a lot of sense spinning out of that event. But he was told that, Owlman was off the table. And then the other big thing that apparently was a sticking point that made it not happen is he was explicitly told under no circumstances was he allowed to go back to the blue costume, which is what he wanted to do for that book when it came back out. And they were like, no.
Stupid. So stupid.
And it was with Mikkel Janin was on this book with him. And then obviously things changed and it became Grayson.
Yeah. But it's so stupid, especially since a few years later, it was like, nah, we realize everyone wants the blue suit back. So, okay, the blue suit's back.
Yeah.
So it's one of these sticking points that people...
It is. But just to go back to this issue and talk about something here, I agree with basically everything you just said on that whole big spiel, by the way. Although I do want to just nitpick some of the minutiae of the terminology, because I actually want to make a related point. I was going to use the word craft, but I was going to use the word craft in a very different way. Because you said you thought it was the weakest from a craft perspective. And I think and you're talking about writing craft and narrative, and I agree with that. In terms of the narrative, it's probably
let me just add to that. When I say weakest, I just mean
out of the three, it's still an extremely high bar.
It's still extremely good. I'm saying that the strengths of this issue came from another lane, came from another perspective, I guess.
I absolutely agree, and I'm not trying to imply that you thought it was weak in any way. Just the weakest of the three, which I also agree with. But I think it's the craft of the comic itself that is the best in this issue, and that's what makes this issue still work so well, beyond just the character interactions. Things like, we talked about that sequence of Babs and Dick in the interrogation, the pacing of that's the craft of that art. I think just after that, we have the top-down, over-the-head layout of them in the apartment and kind of walking through the apartment. There's this top-down shot. It's just real nice stuff like that. We mentioned the pop-in little chibi art of Babs when she's like, "Hey, I heard that." When Dick puts his sticks together to make the staff, and it's it kind of has this little pop out, and it's again very reminiscent of something in, I don't know if it was the last issue of the first one, that reminded me of the Fraction Azure Hawkeye run. But things like that where it's like, no, this has got an identity on a craft perspective from the comic that makes it. I don't know if I'm willing to go on record and say the best thing that DC are publishing outside of Black Label stuff, but in contention for that crown, absolutely. It's in my top 2 or 3 without a doubt, and it's things like that that elevate it beyond even just the fantastic narrative and relationships as well. It's the pure functional craft of how it tells its story that it's just excelling at.
But let's also look at the idea that one of the things we've been saying about Batman is the world building and the idea of Gotham. This issue, I mean, the last 2 issues did it as well, but just the idea of 2 thugs coming from Blockbuster, again, makes it feel like there is a living city around this where there's other supporting cast. And one of the things, again, that was missing in 52 was the idea of supporting casts, both good and bad. So that's just another thing there, that it's like, yeah, the story right now is not about Blockbuster. Everything with Blockbuster and everything that's going on with that political stuff and the mayor and blah, 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 that's all seeding. That's all stuff that's going to come maybe in Arc 2, Arc 3, whatever it may be building to. But it's still there. It's still present. It still has an impact in some way on the ongoings of the story and the city and the world that's around Nightwing. And I think, that craft is exceptionally good throughout this. So, I mean...
Basically, what we're saying is this is an extremely well-made comic in pretty much every department.
Yes. Yeah, all I'm really saying is that certain parts of the craft are shining more in this one versus other parts that were shining more in the last issue. This is really all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I guess with that said, what you rating Nightwing issue 8?
I'm gonna give it a 9.
I will also give it a 9. I think I will give it a 9 too. So there you go. Nightwing is fantastic. Catwoman issue 31, Ram V, writing with Fernando Blanco on the art. And this starts off with your typical kind of, we're mid-story. There's a bit of an action scene with Catwoman. And this is where I was confused. Wait a minute. How did the last issue end? I don't remember it ending with her in a situation like this. No, because it didn't. It ended with her in the dress, walking into the ball, undercover, because she's going to try and find out where Ivy is.
Thankfully, a few pages later, it says earlier that night, and you realised everything.
Yes, so that is the general idea. So it's basically her explaining to the bad guy here. Is it Mr. Roy, I want to say?
Yes.
Who, like, how she did this, how she pulled this off. And she goes back and explains, well, you know, I was there, I was charming you, stroking your ego a little bit, and we see, like, you know, the other characters react, and it's a bit of it's essentially the heist moment of a movie where we see all the parts coming together. It's not as intricate as that, because ultimately it's just, you know, we set up the fact that we're going to go and try and save Ivy last issue, and then here we're already in it, but
it's things like they stole part of the art showcase so that they'd think, oh, there's a thief about, so they'll go check on the most valuable things, being Ivy. Yeah,
and then it's like, you know, how the catering guy's there, and he's actually one of the Alleytown kids, and Shoes is there, you know, with the blue hair, and yes, who by the way, just by that's you know, Roy and Cheshire's kid, but
oh, is it interesting?
She doesn't know. She doesn't know though. She doesn't know.
I didn't know that was their relationship had still even happened in this continuity at the moment.
Well, that's what happens when you miss a weekend. That you get.
Look, it was 100 pages. I had other things to read to get this.
There was two really important stories in that. It was that one because it's so relevant and huge, and it's Ram V, so it's going to be relevant in Catwoman. And then the one at the end, which is actually teasing something that Jean Ling Yang's going to be doing with.
Is that the Monkey Prince one?
Yeah, Monkey Prince. So, but those were the two important stories out of the book. If you are going to go back and just read a couple of them, but yeah. So it was just funny, like, because not that it shows there's anything super important in this issue. She's just kind of part of the plan, but it was just kind of funny having this context in this one where I'm like, oh. Okay, we have all this.
Keep an eye on her.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of story with her going forward. But yeah, it's how she, you know, she got the code for the doors because she put some citrus on his hand and blah blah blah, and gets Ivy out, and then she's like, hey, you know, you realize I'm stalling here, right? Like, you know, this is all the misdirection, and then. But the big dramatic thing at the end, though, because it shows you how Ivy escaped. She's in the food cart and all the rest of it.
Very interesting as well. She's very spaced out and speaking nonsense, shall we say?
Yeah.
I thought super interesting. You know, again, this was, you know, another Ram V book, but the Swamp Thing, where we had in issue 3 inside the green with the multiple Ivies. This was very much the same lettering as that confused Ivy in that issue. Yeah, with the wavy bubbles and the kind of the interesting text, the way it kind of waves.
Yeah, I do wonder if the Ivy stuff is going to be a backdoor crossover. And by backdoor, what I mean is that you don't have to read both books by any means, but the Ivy stuff on its own will have like an added understanding. Whatever.
I was kind of feeling the same here, seeing this, going, oh, interesting, as you're talking about with Shoes, basically, where I didn't feel like I was missing anything in this particular issue, at least not knowing. But it was just more, I'm seeing things that this is interesting from a wider perspective.
Yeah. The big thing for me, though, here was when Mr. Roy realizes that Ivy's gone and he doesn't want his employer to find out, but he's going to now because he's failed. He just takes his gun and kills himself. And it's this, you know, pretty shocking, dark moment that really elevates things. And obviously he mentions the name of who this is, and this is where it sort of starts to really tie into the world of Gotham right now and what's going on with Batman, because it becomes about Saint. And we even see Saint, you know, he gets a scene on his own now, you know, when he's big skyscraper, where we've seen him before, and he's got his the White Witch, which notably is spelt differently. It's white as in IGHT.
Who we definitely saw in Future State, right?
Yeah. He's talking about his plans. I did like the classic mugshot of Catwoman being used in the hologram. Nice touch. But he's like, hey, you failed once, you're not going to fail me again. And she makes the promise. She's very stoic and robotic. She's clearly been brainwashed and whatever.
Maybe more directly controlled, given that her eyes glow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really setting up that Simon Saint's a big player in Catwoman as well, and what he's doing is affecting this, because he even says that he's convinced Mayor Nakano to focus law enforcement and make that Alley Town like a bit of a project for the police now. This is going to be a focal point for them.
Yeah, and obviously we've been seeing in Batman him building the peacekeepers and kind of going down that alley. So
it's a nice touch. And we find out they've got a new hiding place for Ivy for now, which is this old train station, the abandoned station near
Abandoned Grove.
Yeah, and that's where she is. And obviously the mysterious stranger who gave her help, he's still around here giving advice and whatnot. We still don't know who it is. She goes to ask him, but he sort of Batman's out of the scene, as we do. So we don't really know who this character is yet. Nor do I have any real guesses at this point. But
then we do have a teaser, that Father Valley has taken Leo.
This was one of the kids who was in the plan. He was like the catering kid at the party, and Valley's got him. He's clearly been torturing him, and he's interrogating for whatever he knows, basically. I mean, he obviously he phrases it as his confessions, because everything's very biblical. He starts off with a quote, of course, because he always does. But he's got one of it's becoming more personal. It's becoming more. He's been watching. He's been observing. He's been only interfering with others who'll get in his way or possibly take Catwoman before he does. And now he's starting to get closer, and maybe in a way that's going to hurt her, because one of her kids now is being put through this horrible event. If not, maybe he'll eventually kill him, so that'll even just turn it up more.
I think I appreciate how unpredictable Father Valley is, and that I don't know if he's going to kill him or not at the end of this.
Yeah, I don't know either. And then maybe escalate it after that. You could phrase it as he goes to someone who's closer to Selina, and the way I'd phrase it for us, the audience, is that it escalates because it becomes someone who's not effectively a red shirt and becomes someone who Selina cares about, that we know as well as a character and have done for a long time.
Yes.
Whether that's Ivy or whether that's whoever is other question. But so no, really well done stuff. It's sort of thing where this issue is mostly the how I did the heist explanation, but which is very fun to read. But I think the high point for me was the suicide of the villain and the following scene with Saint, because just having that all of a sudden kind of connect Batman and Catwoman into the same world in a really big way.
Yeah.
Because Alley Town always was meant to be part of Gotham, but it kind of felt like it was on its own little pocket before, whereas now it feels like, oh no, it is really part of Gotham.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I love this issue. Again, this is one of those books that for me is in contention for being possibly the best book DC are publishing right now. Because, everything in this issue is great. Like I say, the high stuff is a lot of fun. Blanco in particular, he's having a blast doing this stuff. There's even the layouts on the title page, Catwoman in Misdirection, it's like the actual credits title card. And then, like I say, you get to the hard-hitting moments with the suicide and the phenomenal colors when it cuts to the Simon Saint stuff. All this, bathed in red light. It's super evil. I kind of love it.
Yeah, I also think the Simon Saint stuff feels almost like it comes out of the Batman book in some ways. Obviously, it doesn't look like the exact art, of course, because it's still Blanco here, but in the way that everything with the other stuff in the issue, it's in a mansion, or later on it's in the broad daylight, and then into the abandoned station, but it's still daylight that's sort of lighting them. When it comes to Simon Saint, you get this a feeling of being up in the city, and it made me think of Batman or even more Detective Comics with all the neon lights and all that.
It's captured that new Gotham feeling of the neon. Yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying is that even though the art is different, it still kind of captures what the city feels like right now. And the idea that even editorials having the artist do that is kind of impressive, to be honest.
Yeah.
So credit where credit is due. Because the way the lighting's kind of like, this is the coloring, I guess, more than anything, is drawn and colored onto them. Like, I think it's the light in that last page, the glow of the hologram on Saint's face.
That really harsh blue light.
It feels really like the light's affecting him. Whereas when you go to the next pages, it's a very flat shading style. There's hard shadows and stuff, but there's no like sort of smooth shading. Whereas when I look at the neon light on his face, or the hologram light, it feels like a gradual light. It feels different, and I think that really gives it a different feel to the rest of the book.
Yeah,
we're in a different world. We're up in his high skyscraper world, where he's in charge, where he's plotting and scheming and putting all his plans into motion. I don't know. Really good.
That's great.
And likewise, actually, I think the last page with the valet stuff, the art again feels a bit different. The coloring feels very different. It feels grungier. It feels less
colder.
Clean. Yeah. Than colder,
yeah, because we cut from the scene with Selena and Ivy, and it's very warm, very natural, very friendly, and then into this last page where everything it's still green, and there's a lot of green on the previous page because we're dealing with Ivy and there's a lot of plants, but that was a really natural life green, whereas this is it's this cold underground. It's really harsh in comparison. It just feels so drastically different, even though the color itself is not actually that much of a change. I
would say a big thing is, like, again, I thought it would be more grungy. If you look at the faces on the previous page, Ivy's face, not a lot of detail. Eyes are closed, got the mouth. Very smooth face.
Very rounded faces.
Yeah, very smooth faces, apart from the obvious features of the eyes, nose, and the mouth, right? You go to the next page, and Leo, the guy that has the kid's face, bruise, blood, there's so many things on his face. And then even Valet, the lighting on him, like there's all these shadows and the sunglasses, there's a lot more going on. So the art just distinctly makes it feel like a very different setting, even just through the faces, which so very well done, I guess.
It's very impressive stuff.
What are you rating it?
Give it a 9.
I'm also giving it a 9. Is that 3 9s each with both dished out?
I think it is. Yeah, a lot of 9s this week. Like I said, it's a good week.
It's hard to play when you get 3 9s in a week. It really is. Next up, get into the Patreon books now. Although 2 of them are actually current books, even though obviously we're maybe like a month or so behind given when we started doing them for a patron. But Connor is going to talk about Harley Quinn issue 2, which came out last month. So go for it.
Yes. Unfortunately, I am not as enamored with this issue as I was. Like last issue, I still quite liked it, despite the art. Like in spite of the art, I like this issue not as much. It's not like, again, art aside, because I'll come back to that after. But I don't think it's bad. I think it's just lacking some of the flair that the first issue I felt had. I will say, full disclosure, I did have to skip a page because there was a page where I turned it and I saw a needle going into someone's eye. I was like, I can't read this, and had to go on to the next page because I just can't cope with that.
Yeah, Car doesn't like needles.
No, not at all. So I missed about a page of context towards the end. So I was guessing some of the bits, but my feeling was mostly set in stone before that anyway. So I don't think that's affected my judgment too much. Because a lot of this issue is Harley wanting her second chances, basically, because we have Maya Nakano giving Hugo Strange a big public second chance. Kind of, he wants him to run their new program called SAFE, and that's an acronym for something: Secure and Fearless Engagement Program, or as they call it, SAFE. It's basically them going, well, we haven't got Arkham anymore, so we need something. And Strange is promising this will be about rehabilitation because he's changed and he understands the importance of rehabilitation. And it's specifically going to be focusing on all the clowns and the leftovers from the Joker War and kind of trying to get those people back to being a functioning members of society, unlike what they are now, and not just throwing them in jail. And that stuff, it's like fine. Harley basically is going around town and having her own problems. Like, It cuts from this speech that Hugo Strange is giving with Nakano to Harley watching it in a coffee shop on the TV because it's on the news. And she's very annoyed because the newscaster was like, "Oh, that was such a sincere apology, and a moving apology to the people of Gotham," was how the newscaster put it. And Harley was like, "That's not an effing apology. You didn't even say the words 'I'm sorry' once, so that doesn't count." As she's doing this, jumping up onto the counter, kicking up a storm, ruining everything, and they ask her to leave, and she's like, "Well, I haven't got my mocha latte with extra mocha yet." It's like, "I'm sorry, I'll clean up the mess, but can I get my coffee to go?" And then they kick her out and tell her not to come back, and she's upset because because she said sorry, and Strange didn't, and she still gets punished, whereas he's getting rewarded. And that's what a lot of this issue is. And she runs into one of the ex-clowns that she knows, Kevin, and he's having moments of regret. We have a flashback to what he did during the Joker War. He burnt down a building. He threw a petrol bomb at like this store, and then it turned out there was someone still inside, and that's why he got arrested, because everyone else ran away, but he obviously felt guilty that there was someone inside and stayed and waited for the police to arrive, and they arrest him for it. And then you've just got Strange working on the clowns. He's doing some corrective treatments. I'm assuming this is what the injections were, because he's got one for someone who was a clown, complaining that they're going to be fine, they're getting better, you got the wrong guy. And Strange is like, no, we'll fix you, we'll correct you, we'll put you back in society, part of this safe system. And I don't know exactly what his motive is. I don't know exactly what he's going to cover, but I'm sure he has plans. This is Hugo Strange. I'm sure he is not reformed, as all seems. But that is most of the issue. It's Rosmo. It's very, very Rosmo. I will say I'm grateful he didn't try to get inventive with the layouts or anything this time, because I did have problems with that last time, where some stuff was just confusing. There is nothing worse than usual, I will say, in this issue about Rosmo. That sometimes I will complain about specific things. This is just general. If you like Rosmo, you're probably going to be fine with this. If you don't, it's more of the usual big, weird shaped heads and big chins and ugly stuff like that. Very strangely proportioned bodies that I despise. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's. I don't think it's that great an issue, which is a shame, because I thought the first one kind of rose above the art, and this one I'm like, it's fine. It's not like badly written, but it's gone from something that I liked in spite of the art to being like, okay. I even if this was an artist I liked now, I probably wouldn't be thrilled about this book. Yeah, it's like a 5. Yeah, I'll give it a 5.
Okay, 5 it is. So yeah, my Patreon book is the Joker issue 2. So I read issue 1 of this. I opted out basically based on the price increase, which didn't seem to come with a page count increase, because it was already expensive. It was already a bigger book with the backup, and then they added the extra $1 anyway. Which I think that all the covers do have cardstock, but that doesn't really affect when you're reading digital. However, Patreon wanted to make me keep reading it, which of course I didn't mention even. I usually did a little speech at the start of the Patreon books. I guess it was weird because Justice League was kind of a half, because it was just you that was a Patreon book for. But every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. One of the higher tiers is to make myself a corner read a book. And so it is a great excuse to keep reading it because someone's making me to. And there's some big stuff in this, actually. So obviously it's tying in March. And I will say March's art is a bit worse than this one, the first issue. Like, the first issue was surprisingly not that offensive. And
it's the kindest I've ever heard you be about March.
I think issue 2 is maybe a bit more like, there's definitely pages where it's feeling like Gillen March a bit more. So... take that as you will. But there's big stuff in this issue, and I did like the story of the first issue. I didn't stop reading it because I didn't like the story, because it's not really a Joker book, it's a Jim Gordon book. And there's even references again in this issue to Year One, which again is as much of a Jim Gordon book as it was a Batman book.
I believe those issues between arcs, which are going to be like, I think the first one's Francavilla. They will be revisiting basically key moments between Gordon and Joker, their life. So one of them will be, I think, around year one. I'm sure one of them will be set around killing Joke, things like that. That's kind of the point of those issues.
I didn't remember there was going to be issues between arcs, but take your word for it.
We spoke about it in the solicits.
I'm sure we did, but we talk about a lot of books and solicits. So if you remember first issue, which I remembered fairly well. I mean, there was natively names that I couldn't remember, but it's basically some mysterious rich woman makes an offer to Gordon to hunt down the Joker and kill him. We don't know who it is. She had a weird name. Cassandra or something stupid like that. Some weird name. But it's obviously an alias. We don't know for sure who she is. It was a bit of a mystery, as was her big bodyguard, who, under any other circumstances, you would just assume it was Bane, given the stature. But Bane technically seemingly died in, the A-Day stuff. So that seems unlikely. Although there is some Bane-related stuff in this. There's people at Santa Prisca wearing Bane masks, genetically altering someone to presumably also go after the Joker, because they're blaming Joker for the death of Bane. As well as a Texas Chainsaw style family, which is teased at the start. I was like, who the hell are these 4 characters in this page? And then at the end of the issue, I'm like, oh, it's like a Texas Chainsaw style thing, because they're actually in Texas as well. All sorts of wackiness. But there's some big stuff in this. So I actually really like the core story. I like this is Jim struggling with this offer that he's been made, and he talks about how there was this time back in the sort of year one-ish days where Babs was pregnant. They already had Barbara. It was a bit later, but it was definitely year one, because he talks about how Flash made this offer that, hey, there's some ways to make some extra money in Gotham. If you're willing to bend the rules a little bit. And Gordon obviously hated the idea, but he kept thinking about how much is it going to cost to put 2 kids through college? How much is it going to cost to do this? He's supposed to be the sole supportive worker in the family, yada yada yada. And he'd go out into the balcony, the fire escape, and he'd think about it. And if he ever was remotely tempted, the second he stepped out into the cold and looked at the city at night, he'd be like, no, I can't. It's just not me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, whatever ways I could possibly justify it. It's just not me. This is who I am. And he goes out to the fire escape here, and Batman shows up because he has a mini signal to attract them. And they talk about stuff, and he notably leaves out the part where he's been asked to kill Joker, but he tells Batman about the offer to go and hunt down Joker. And he talks about how he's got cards left to play up his sleeve, right? He's always had a couple of cards to play. He's got one card to play in the context of working with Batman, the context of this and that. And basically he's not asking for Batman's approval, and Batman kind of says, you're telling me all this because you want to do it. He's like, yes, I do. And he's like, so what are you asking for here? And he's like, well, I need resources. I need help. I need access to your files, the back computer, effectively, and all of Joker's aliases, where he's been, his accomplices, blah 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 blah, everything you could possibly need. And Batman's like, yeah, and he also I need your damn phone number, because a bat signal won't work when I'm in another country. I need to be able to call you and get help if need be. And Batman essentially is like, you know what? I am so busy with all this A-Day crap, with the mayor, with everything going on. I can't go hunt Joker around the planet, but I kind of trust you to. So all this stuff has been set up, and it's all good. But then we get to the big stuff, which is Batman says, okay, I'll give you a way to contact me, but I'm going to give you something else. And he's basically going to give him Oracle, right? Access to Oracle. So Oracle's going to be there to talk him through things and do what Oracle does. And Babs is talking to Batman over the comms, saying, look, I hate this idea, by the way. He's going to get himself killed. And so, and also Batman at one point makes him promise to, you won't go in yourself. Once you find him, you'll call me and we'll do it together. And he kind of slyly dodges the promise by saying that makes sense. And Babs immediately points to us and says, he technically didn't promise anything. He just said something else. And then Jim says, okay, I've been holding on to a card for years that I'm going to play because this is going to make Batman question why I'm holding something back or why I've not promised something. So I'm not sure how much he's hearing some of this, potentially, at a certain point. Because they're not using like names yet or anything like that, I don't think. Because she even speaks in third person. Because he can definitely hear. Because she doesn't refer to him as dad or anything. She says Commissioner Gordon. So that wraps that up. But, so Gordon plays the card that he's been holding on to for years. He just says, you sure you're not just worried about your old man, Barbara? And like, Batman and Babs both like are in shock. So the big thing here is that Jim reveals that he's known for years that Oracle and Batgirl are Barbara. And I don't actually dislike this because, for one, he's around her a lot more than any other Bat characters. I'll buy that he's not went looking for who Batman is and whatever, and so on. But
much out of respect of anything as well. Though.
Yeah, that too. But the idea that he is around Barbara a lot more, and it even actually clears up something from a previous story, which I didn't necessarily need them to, but they go into I can't remember if this was this during the Rebirth run or was it back in the New 52? Whenever James Gordon Jr. died, was that during the Rebirth?
It was New 52.
Was that New 52? Anyway, so there was a point in that Babs brings up like so basically after he reveals this, Babs doesn't even like continue the conversation. She just says, "Dad, come to the watchtower now." That's all she says. Or the clock tower, sorry. Not the watchtower.
You are thinking a bit where this was where he died, where like fell off the roof, right?
I think so, yeah. I think so. It doesn't specify. She just says, basically, what she brings up when he comes to talk to her is, like, okay, forget the fact. First of all, there's a lot of questions I have going through my mind. One, like, how much else do you know? What do you know exactly? And, Gordon sort of fesses up, okay, I know you're Batgirl, or you were Batgirl. And your Oracle now, I guess. And she's like, yeah, I'm still figuring things out. And they kind of like, go back and forth. And even, and one of the small moments here that I really liked, which is tiny and really getting like something you have to do here, is that when she explains, yeah, I'm Oracle again, I'm figuring things out. The tech in my back that helps me walk, it's been kind of put through the paces because of being Batgirl. And, there's a bit of a timer on being Batgirl. And technology could get better and, there could be a fix for it. But there's just a little moment here where Gordon says, for the first time ever, he's been able to ask a question about being Batgirl, and all he asks is, "Are you in pain?" When he hears about the chip or whatever not being in the best condition, it's that little moment of like, for the first time as a father, knowing for years who Batgirl is, he actually just gets to say, "Is this hurting you in some way? How do you feel about this as Batgirl?" I don't know. It was kind of a sweet moment. And they talk about how Joker's affected both of them, and her brother, what happened to her, all the stuff you'd expect them to bring up, and he actually confesses. He says, the mission is to kill him, and he's not decided yet. One of the cards that he's not played is that he doesn't really have to decide if he's going to go through with it until the moment, until he actually gets to him. Up until then, he can go the other way, and he makes a promise to Babs that he will only go through with it if he can convince Babs by the time that comes that she agrees with it. The taking Joker out is worth the moral cost because of everything the Joker's done and probably will continue to still do. So, interesting thing that they're keeping that from Batman. It gives them something between just them, which is a nice touch. So all this is really good stuff. The Gillen March art's unfortunate, but all the story stuff here, all the character stuff between Babs and Jim is all super interesting. And the thing she brings up, though, the reason why I brought up that James Gordon Jr. stuff, is because she says, okay, well, if you have known for years, then I've got a bone to pick. And it's almost like Tynion could predict some of the, not plot holes per se, but interactions they've had in the past that maybe, does that make sense if he knows who she is, kind of thing. And obviously he's not going to tackle every possible one, because I'm sure there's a number of them over the last several years, but brings up one moment where he said to Batgirl, I will hold you personally accountable, Batgirl, if anything happens to James Gordon, or if he's already dead, what happened to him. And she brings this up and says, you said that to me, and you knew it was me. What the hell? Like, that's kind of cold, as if you know I'm your daughter. And he basically fesses up and says, like it was unfair to say that, and he was obviously maybe even angry. If you go with the assumption that maybe he's only known for a brief moment or for a brief while that who Batgirl is, that there's an extra layer of anger to it because of the lies and because of who she is and what she's doing. And I think what I like about this reveal that he's known for a long time, and he's chosen not to reveal it for a number of reasons, but part of it may just be out of respect for his daughter as well, that she chose this to be a secret, so he's holding back. But is that by doing it this way, where he's already known and sort of on some level come to accept it, we don't have to go through oh, this is too dangerous, Barbara, you can't do this, Barbara, oh my god, why have you been doing this for all these years, Barbara? Like, he's already kind of made peace with, she's made this choice on her own, we don't have to go through that rigmarole. And I think that's a really positive way of doing it, because it takes all the negativity that could possibly come from the storytelling of it, I think, and puts it straight to an interesting position where he's going to actually talk to her as Oracle, where she's going to be helping him on his little mission here. And the subject never comes up, actually, that she'll know a lot of other secrets. Because obviously, when she says at first, like, what else do you know? It's not just about her. It's just like, do you know who Batman is? Do you know who Dick Grayson, who Nightwing is? Do you know about anyone else? It's just, I don't know, it's just interesting. Like, I almost imagine, if her and Dick do end up together long term at some point, and they do go through those paces, I do wonder if there's like here's my boyfriend, and kind of like him just looking at Dick and being like, all right, which one are you? You're clearly one of them.
As if he wouldn't know.
Which one?
He wouldn't be able to work it out.
Yeah, it's all the interesting dynamics this brings up, and again, this brings it back to, this is a Jim Gordon book. I know it's called Joker. I know it's about hunting Joker, and there is a Joker scene in this one in the middle where, Gordon talks about how he heard rumors once that Joker and some of the other big villains, like, there's a network of like safe places for them to go and hide when they're not doing their thing, and they've been using it for years, and they try to kick Joker out because he kills like one of the neighbor like hideouts, and Joker basically says, let's set up an ambush because there's going to be people on the way. But a lot of this issue is Barbara and Jim talking to each other and talking about all this stuff and their condition. She gives him a special phone that's red because he always loses the phones that she gives him. And I'm pretty sure that I've heard this joke before, so this isn't even just out of nowhere, this line. This is something that's been brought up before, is that she's given him like phones for Christmas and stuff that he's lost. It sounded familiar to me.
I'll have to take your word for it. I can't say I've never, like, definitely not, but I'm not confident enough to say I remember it. Yeah.
She basically says, yeah, if you don't check in twice a day, I'm going to like just put in the emergency protocols, which is like probably to send the entire Bat family on wherever his last location was. And does mention that there is like safety locks on the Bat computer. Like, he's getting access to the Bat computer database, but a lot of it's going to be blocked off. Like, and
ghost basically.
Yeah, but unless you give me a really good reason to unlock a certain thing, like you're only getting this portion that's been deemed relevant. So, so not only do we get a Jim Gordon book about him dealing with the horrors that the Joker's put him through on a personal level, and him hunting down Joker, and maybe him questioning, can he take a life, the worst possible life, for all the best reasons? Can he cross that line? We're also exploring him knowing who Barbara actually is, and the dynamic of them working together on some level. So there's a lot of really good things going on in this book, that if you like these characters, like Jim and Babs, like there's stuff here to care about. So, which is, it's frustrating that they're overcharging for the book, because it's and obviously the art has been Gillen March, but that's whatever. Then we go to Texas, right? So there's 4 characters teased early in the book, as the opening narration was happening. And it even looks like the house, specifically from the remake of Texas Chainsaw. But it's this family, who apparently one of their like relatives, was arrested and spent like a life in Arkham, and they've been living comfortably. They're never going to get out, but they've used their fortune to make sure that they'll live happily in Arkham, and they die during A Day, and they blame Joker. So it's basically the head of the household sort of saying, "Now we're going to hunt this prick down," and by prick I mean the clown. Even though we know that it was actually Scarecrow. But I mean, it makes sense that everyone thinks it was Joker, given the laughing gas and whatnot. And then Santa Prisca, these Bane supporters have built like another super soldier with the Venom. This woman who puts on a Bane mask and also says she's hunting the Joker. So we actually have like all these third parties like hunting the Joker. And then the final cliffhanger of the book, which comes all the way back round to who this mysterious woman and whatever her fake name was. We find out that her... Now, I didn't remember if this last name is important. I don't know if Clark, Miss Clark, is going to mean anything to you that maybe I'm misremembering. But it turns out that she's actually working on behalf of the Court of Owls, who also want to go after Joker. And she's basically making good for her family name, which is why I think maybe the Clark names came up before at some point.
I don't remember it, but that would be presumably in the early Snyder stuff at the start of New 52, right? Which, was like a decade ago.
Yeah, so basically, her father or mother or whoever who was in the Court of Owls like failed back in the day, and she's like sort of regaining the honor, and she puts on the mask at the end. And it's finally time to teach the Joker to beware the Court of Owls. So she's that. So this issue did a lot, and it's 20 pages. Like most of it's one conversation between two conversations, Batman and Gordon, and then Babs and Gordon, and those are both really long. They both got all the time they need to flesh out. But there's the all these teases at the start of all these other groups. There's a scene in the middle with the Joker to break it up, and then the ending is like the payoff to all those teases at the start of like, okay, this is all third parties, third, fourth, and fifth parties who are also hunting the Joker, which is only going to make Gordon's life more difficult on this mission, you would expect. From a storytelling perspective, I think this book's really well put together. And from a character perspective, I think it feels really important for the primary characters we're dealing with. Amusingly, not Joker, despite the fact that it's called the Joker. But that's okay. It's a Commissioner Gordon book, and it wouldn't sell if it was called that. So,
might do if you slap Tynan's name on it front and center like all his other books.
That's true. If they really emphasize Tynan, maybe they'd get away with it. But so yeah, art's ropey, but I'm liking the story. I'm glad a patron's making me read this because I get to still experience it and discover what's going on with everything. That's felt like a big deal. Obviously, issue 3 already came out last week, so I'll be reading issue 3 next month, and then I'll be continuously one behind. But that's not a big deal. It still feels relevant. Everything's still tying into the current Gotham world. The fact that Batman's like, yeah, all this shit's going on, so I can't hunt him. So yeah, might as well be you, Gordon. So, solid stuff. The main story, like, even with the art, I think I still want to give it an 8. Even like, I love the characters of Jim and Babs so much that like everything it does, and then I think even the teasing of all these third parties hunting Joker is all fun, in its own right. So, yeah, even with the art, I think I want to give it an 8. And it would probably, if it had really good art, it would probably be another 9. Not that it would count for the rankings this week, but
and then you knock a point off for the shitty extra $1.
Yeah, well, there's still the backup because keep in mind. It was an extra $1 to begin with because of the backup, and then it's another extra $1 for some reason. So
yeah. I mean, the $1 for the backup is fine. That's the same as every other book where maybe I'm not always happy about it, but at least the pages represent.
So on the subject of the backup, we go to Blackgate once again. Punchline's in there. She hit. I can't remember the exact character, but the Queen of whatever. So the Royal Flush Gang in the prison right now. She's all pissed that Punchline whacked her, and we get all these. We see all these different like video feeds. So someone's been doing like sort of like interviews about all these people that Punchline knew before she became Punchline, and they're talking about her. Harper Rose listening to this, talking to Leslie Tompkins, and kind of sets her on a path to investigate this guy, someone she knew when they were both kind of like snotty goth kids in high school, and she goes and kind of interrogates him, and he leads her down to the basement where it seems like he's actually been building his own little not murder board, but he's got like a little, not a shrine, but it's like he's trying to like investigate himself, or at the very least he's obsessed with her. I'm not sure, the context isn't clear exactly what his reason for having this is yet, but he says, here's everything I know about her. Alexis is her actual name. So So that's fine. But I did have fun with the prison stuff. Basically, Punchline starting to take over the prison a little bit. The Royal Flush Gang's not happy with it, and the cliffhanger of the backup is that they actually got Orca put into Blackgate just so that Orca can be used as a henchman for the Flush Gang. So that's the cliffhangers, that Orca's in there. So honestly, it's a fun time. It's fun having Harper Row kind of be the lead hero in a story. The only critique I'd have of this is that it's so short because it's a 10-page backup, and it does go in really quickly. So, and I think that hurts my memory of the story a bit more when it has less of an impact on me because it's much shorter. But as a backup that's there, I'm still going to read it because I still like the characters involved and it's adding to things, So, I'll rate the backup. Solid 7, I think. I mean, the art's good. The art, I mean, it's much better than the main story.
I hope so.
Much better. Yeah. The art was Mika and Dolfo. So it's very expressive, cartoony. It kind of fits the punky nature of a lot of the characters. Punchline, Harper, they all have kind of a more modern aesthetic. They got the funky colors in the hair and stuff like that. The Royal Flush woman does as well. Because Harper has the blue and the purple, and then the Royal Flush girl has green in her hair. So there's a lot of that going on. It kind of fits together the attitude that the story has and the characters have. So that's neat. Overall, if it wasn't for the gouging of the price, it's actually a very solid book. Story and character wise, at the very least, with a fun enough backup. So, Joker 2. So final Patreon book, Noctera issue 3. Take it away.
Yep, Snyder writing and Tony Daniel on art. Honestly, this is a pretty straightforward issue. This is arguably the most straightforward Snyder book I've read in years. No, that's a bad thing. It's still very good. We open with another flashback section to when they were kids, just after it had kind of all happened. We learned last issue the parents were infected. So we start with the two kids watching the news, and the parents are locked in the bedroom. And the news is basically telling us, once the eyes changed, there's no way back. That's kind of the turning point. You can't stop it at that point, because once that's done, scans show the brain itself has changed, especially around the language center. So if that's happened, don't listen to them. They still seem human, but they're trying to trick you. And they go and talk to them through the door. Some really nice lettering effects here, where there's no bubbles behind the door. There's no tails on the bubbles from them behind the door. The text's a little bit smaller. It's got that sense of distance to it. And then there's a bit where Val's actually whispering to her brother, and it does the outline of the bubbles kind of becomes like broken, like dotted lines rather than one solid bubble to show the whispering. Just clever little bits. But when they do open the door a little bit, you just see the glowing eyes, and it's them saying, "We love you. Yes, we mean it. We love you with all our hearts." Which is important because it comes up again later. But it even says then in the narration, so they did mean what they were saying. They just didn't realize that then they weren't talking to us, they were talking to something else. Because this is this idea that once the language center of the brain's infected, they're connected to the hive mind, so to speak. And who knows what exactly they're communicating to. But also the lettering, again, when we see them, it's this really like a scratchy lettering. The bubbles they're not neat anymore. They're kind of like not quite wavy, just a little bit off, just not neat ovals, just to give you this sense that they're not quite human anymore, but close enough that they're still recognizable. But I think it's really smart because when they're behind the door and we don't see them, when they're putting on the act, it still looks relatively normal. The text, it's not until you see them and realize the truth that it changes. And it's just this really smart trick. But then we just cut ahead to the future. I say the future, the present, and it's them in the truck trying to escape. Backstop Bill, was that his name? I'm completely forgetting his name. The guy in the black suit.
I don't read the book.
Blackstop Bill.
You're kind of on your own.
I was getting it. Blackstop Bill. We get a little bit more of his legend. There's this idea that he had like a legend even before the big PM as like this hunter, pseudo mythical, and how good he was that he could hunt anything by the sounds of it. It's just them trying to escape. She's going through. They've got like defenses at their ports, so there's like a big neon sign. The cowgirl with the gun. You've seen the image. Very classical like neon sign image. But it turns out it's actually got like one of the pouches on the thing is filled with something else that's a big explosive. So they try and blow them up. Doesn't happen. Keeps coming. Blackstop Bill, he kind of shoots some harpoons into them that are draining their batteries as well. So they're like they're running low. So the grandpa, the old man who they're transporting, decides that he's going to sacrifice himself. He's going to make the play. Because if he can take the doors off manually and open them to get rid of the harpoons, and if he gives himself over to Bill, maybe he'll stop chasing them because he's what they want, or so they assume. Before he does, he gives the little girl his journal. He says, "Look, this is all going to be gibberish to you. It won't mean anything, but I didn't entirely lie to you. Take it to where we're going, and my brother will understand it, and he'll, help." But he does get captured by Bill, and he's like, "Hey, you might as well just kill me. It's fine. But by the way, I gave them my fake journal. Here's the real one. So kill me, not her. You don't need them. You can stop chasing them now." Pretty obvious, right? Not very subtle. I'm sure he's not buying this at all. But Bill's pretty evil. He's like, no. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to leave you there, tied up with the harpoon through your stomach until you turn into a shade. And then you're going to go and kill the girl yourself. Because lovely. But the rest of the issue, it's only a few pages. They've reached a sanctuary cave, somewhere in Utah. This cave that I assume is a tourist location now, because they talk about there's all these handprints inside, and there's like debate as to whether or not they're actually as old as they seem, or if it's just something whatever. But the idea that now it's kind of irrelevant. Every time someone comes through, they kind of put a handprint with like this neon paint almost on it to give it a glow, so that this cave is always light, and they're always replenishing it because, again, light's the safety thing. But her brother's obviously in a bad place. He's again, if you've forgotten, they're traveling to this sanctuary because she thinks that they might have, or the reason she's doing it is she thinks they might have the technology to heal him, stop the infection before it gets any worse. She goes off and talks to the girl. It's like, "Hey, what's going on? What did he give you? What did he say?" And he shows her the journal, and it's kind of nothing. Nice little bit of banter between them. Just basically, she's like, "Oh, I don't, forget about believing in the lie that he told you that this place will make the sun come back. There's daylight's gone forever." And the girl's like, "Oh, I believe it's coming back." And then she's just, "Despite you, I believe in the hands on the walls as well. They're real. You got to deal with it." Just all this stuff, just this little bit of character building that's, I don't want to say lacking, but the book has focused so much on the action and the big bombastic nature and the mystery of everything that's going on, that the characters, while solid, have not been the heart or the hook in any way. They've been interesting enough, but they haven't been special. So now, again, a little bit of interaction between these characters is nice, especially as we're at the end of issue 3 now. But the final bit is the brother opening his eyes, and they've changed. He is now too far gone, and he actually says, I love you too. And then there you go. The final line goes, "I love you with all my heart," and the lettering switches to what the parents had when they had that line as well. Really nicely bookends the issue, and it's her narration to saying he was speaking to something else. I'm getting quite invested in what this mystery is. Like, what else is out there? What is the larger hive mind? Because it's not just talking to someone else. It's not just talking to other members. At least that's the implication here. it's something else. That there's like a higher power almost controlling them. I'll be very interested to see what he goes into. But the book's honestly, it's a lot of fun. Art's great. Action looks fantastic, which is important when probably 2/3 of the issue is action. But yeah, no, I'm having a blast with it. It's a solid 8.
Okay, there you go. That is the last book, so that takes out the part of the show. We pick our favourites of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and rank our top 5. So we'll get into it. What is your moment / panel of the week?
Would you like to take a guess? Because I think it's pretty obvious.
Is it Dick acknowledging the delusional Tim fans? Is it that one?
Yes, that's the moment. Dick acknowledging that we're right to think Tim's the best.
You can appreciate that opinion. He doesn't say it's the right opinion. There's a difference. I don't know what mine's is actually off the top of my head. There's a lot of good books to pick from.
It's one of those rare weeks where I knew as soon as I read it, I'm like, that's my moment. That was my that was like my second book I read, and I was like, I know it.
It doesn't count, but there's even a moment from Joker that could have theoretically won because of just the implications of the characters involved. I think I'm probably going to have to go also with Nightwing, but I'm going with the nature of the relationship. That sequence of like 3 panels, just like I sort of laughed out loud. In a sort of very specific kind of way, where it was like there was so much weight behind the joke, which is why it was funny. That it works so well. A lot I picked from this week though. As far as cover of the week goes, I do really like the regular Wonder Girl cover, but for me it's no question the variant for Nightwing where he is making the Nightwing logo out of the clotheslines.
Is that a Campbell variant?
Up in the sky. It is gorgeous. It's one of those things where I think the first time I looked at it, I didn't even realize he was doing the top of the symbol with his feet. I thought he was just doing a handstand.
Doing the V, yeah.
Which is a nice.
It's a very nice cover. I mean, spoiled for covers this week.
It's just one of those things where
Catwoman has a Prism variant, which is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like art quality, but it's also just conceptually it's such a good cover. Because sometimes it'll just be a really nice drawn cover. There's nothing conceptually special about it, but that's just a really fun idea.
I'm looking at the Wonder Girl covers. I think I'm going to go with the regular variant, which is the Bilko Seafley one. I really like that. I discounted a lot of the others because they're 1 to 25s or store exclusives, and we tend to not really count those.
I do kind of like the one where she's with the Pegasus.
The Jen Bartel one.
Yeah, that looks quite nice. But honestly, my favorite one is actually the regular cover, though. I actually really like the regular cover.
I get it. That's like a close second out of the covers, barring out of the main 2, anyway.
Yeah. So
it's very close.
Yeah, they did a lot of like store exclusives and like 1 in 125s and all that. So there's actually quite a few of the variants.
Yeah, there's a 1 in 250 foil variant, which, oof.
Foil. Oh.
Yeah,
actually that works for Wonder Woman because she actually does part of the outfit is actually got a metallic. So
it's the grandpa variant, which is her with her hands on her hips. But then which is I think that's just a regular variant. But then they've got the 1 in 250 version, which is the foil version of that same cover. But
okay, well,
probably priced.
All right, art of the week.
It's not fair. Like, I genuinely don't know. This is the first time in a long time where I don't know, because Catwoman, Nightwing, and Wonder Girl are all phenomenal art. Yeah. God damn it.
And it's not like Marquez is slumming it either.
It says a lot when like Marquez is easily the 4th choice out of those. Like, he is easily below those.
The only one that has questionable art is Flash. Like the rest are all excellent to up and up.
Yeah. Like, but those 3 are above. Like, Justice League's a step below those 3 still for me. But god damn it, I just don't know. I'll give it to Nightwing, I guess, just because of some of the extra little elements that I appreciate. Had a little bit more diversity in what it did in the issue, but I mean, it could have been any of them.
Yeah, Yeah, I praised all three in their art, but I think I'm going to go with Wonder Girl on this. Maybe it's just because I've been getting Redondo and Blanco on those books, so this is the fresh one. But I think the art helps so much in making Yara this likable, fiery spirit that I just have to go with it. So
it's one of those where I wouldn't fault anyone for picking any of those three choices, because it's a terrible choice to make.
And much like the other two, it did also have inventive layouts. It had little touches in how it paced the panels and all those other things that we always talk about with the craft of the paneling. But all right, ranking the top 5. Go. I know what your 4 and 5 are going to be. It's the order of the first 3 that are.
Oh yeah. It's Justice League and then Flash could be 4 and 5. I don't know. God damn it. Nightwing, Wonder Girl. No. Nightwing, Catwoman, Wonder Girl. I don't know. Take your pick. I'll go with those 3, but it's kind of meaningless this week. For once, I genuinely don't know.
No, I'm going to put Nightwing at number 1, and then I'll put Wonder Girl at number 2 and Catwoman at number 3. And then Justice League at 4 and Flash at 5. If I could count Joker, but I can't, but if I could count Joker, since it is still a very relevant, just 1 month behind issue, it would slot in. It would slot in above Flash comfortably. And if it had good art, it would slot in probably above Justice League. But it doesn't.
Like, I don't think that, I don't know if I've ever had a week before where there were, like, I've had it where I've struggled to decide between like 2 books, but 3 where it's a complete toss-up where I don't know really. Like, if you ask me again tomorrow, I might give you those 3 in a different order.
Yeah,
I don't know. If I've had that
I think Matt's read most of his books. I don't know why he didn't send in his ranking for us to also reveal, but maybe just
he's slacking. Too busy watching the hockey.
Yeah, it's hockey season. He's got
more important things to do.
Yes. I'm going to get to say something. There's a quote from one of my new favorite B movies that I'm going to get to say in a few months' time, and it's going to be great. No one's going to get it but me.
What is it going to be? Like,
and it's relevant to Matt watching hockey.
I want to know what it is, because you're going to forget it. You're going to forget to say it in a couple of months.
Okay, so in The Blob, 1988, which is a wonderful, schlocky 80s B movie with great practical effects, there's a scene where some of the I don't know, like 12-year-olds, whatever they are, sneak off to see a horror movie, right? So this is the end of the 80s, right at the height of the slasher boom, or the tail end of it. And they're seeing like it's not a Friday the 13th movie, but it's like it's the movie's fake version of it, right? And it's like this really cheesy scene with like this couple having a picnic at night, and their really crap romance, and you're like, and it's one of those things. The first time you watch it, you're like, this could just be in this movie, but I feel like it's probably like a movie scene, like inside the movie, because it's not really that far away in tone from what the movie is anyway. But then there's like there's a serial killer with a hockey mask on, up in the distance. And the woman screams and says, something, and the boyfriend, completely deadpan and shocked, and doesn't understand that this is a serial killer, just yells out, "But hockey season ended months ago!" And it's one of my favourite lines in any horror movie now. We did it on the Ace because it's also a sci-fi movie, and me and Tara were cackling talking about that scene in the review. It was absolutely great.
Fair enough.
I cannot recommend 1988's The Blob more. It's a really funny movie. There's a lot of good comedy in the movie, actually. That being one of the highlights, but there's a lot of good comedy in it. Anyway, there you go. I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics, which Connor doesn't get to. Joe, the tears in Matt's eyes as I was telling him that Nightwing, Wonder Girl, and Catwoman were all out this week that he was missing.
I don't think I'm missing anything to quite that level. Or at least not like the triple punch like that.
Yeah. So coming next week, we got Detective Comics 1036. We got Action Comics 1031. We got Strange Adventures issue 10. Batman Superman 18. Robin issue 2. Teen Titans Academy issue 3, which we have both dropped now, admittedly, but it is out. Harley Quinn issue 3. Look for Connor's thoughts on that next month.
Hey, I'm currently up to date on Harley Quinn. Who knew?
Technically, but you'll be out of date as of next week.
After next week, yes.
Batman Black and White issue 6 is coming out. The Other History of the DC Universe issue 4. We do have one new thing that we'll definitely be checking out on the show, which is Mr. Miracle, the Source of Freedom. And we have a one-shot Stargirl Spring Break Special issue 1, which should be an interesting little thing to check out. Also, the Maelstone Returns Infinite Edition issue 0 is out. I don't know how much that'll be a thing we check.
That is the... I have read the majority of it, because I think I think there's like 2 stories in it. The 20-page main story is, or 20-ish, is the thing from Fandom last year.
Okay.
It's basically setting up all of the Milestone books that are launching in the next couple of months.
Yeah,
so probably worth reading.
Yeah, I'll have to remind Matt of the one shot in the Mr. Miracle book just in case he forgets them. But yes, I suspect that we'll be looking at those. But you know, Action Detective have been solid. Strange Adventures, obviously, is one of the best exciting things to talk about. It's
definitely a good-looking week.
Yeah,
but I'd rather be on this week than next if I had to pick.
Well, it worked out in your favor then, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
But we'll see. Connor's not here next week. Must mean there's a super secret issue 13 of Doomsday Clock coming out.
Retire that damn joke. It's been 2 years. Probably longer since I missed an issue.
Yeah, probably. But you know, hey, I still bring Cold Snap up occasionally. I mean, it's obviously less frequent, but once in a while you pop the long-time listeners with a really old reference to an early episode. Once in a while. But yeah, that's what's coming in next week from DC Comics. Obviously, we did mention Patreon, talk about the Patreon picks, but you can support us at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses. At the $5 tier in particular, you get the show a day early than everyone else. So go have a look and see if you're interested in helping keep all the content coming. Of course, you can support us for free simply by rating and giving us a review of the podcast on your podcast app or platform of choice. You know, iTunes is a really popular one, but tons of people use Google or Pocket Casts or whatever people use.
Spotify. People use Spotify.
People do use Spotify. That's true. We do have listeners on Spotify. You can also, of course, support us if you watch us on YouTube by pounding the like button and subscribing and maybe commenting as well if you feel so inclined. So do all that. It catches on the Twitters at DC Comics Podcast. Go and have a look there. But otherwise, that is us. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And I almost said an outro to a different show there. I just stopped myself in time. And it's because
what are you gonna do?
We were talking about the Blob, so I had the Ace outro in my head. I had the Ace outro ready to go. I was about to say computer add salsa. But luckily, I caught myself. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force. But hockey season ended months ago.